Welcome to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting for February 27th, 2017 at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall on Main Street in Raleigh. I call the meeting to order. First order of business is to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have a 7 o'clock appointment with Chief Dumas to recommend some people to be appointed. We have citizens query from 7:10 to 7:15. That's my target anyway. 7:30, we have an appointment with Triton Superintendent Brian Forget, and we have general business, new business, and fiscal year 18 budgets. So we'll get started with our 7 o'clock appointment. Chief Dumas is here to recommend the following persons to be appointed. And let me read. Dear board members, during the most recent collective bargaining agreement with AFS CME Local 2905, a new lead dispatcher position was negotiated. This position was posted internally at the police department on January 17th, 2017, and the position closed on January 27th, 2017. We had one internal candidate apply for the position, Sherry David. Sherry met with me, Captain Sedgwick, and Sergeant McMullen on February 6, 2017 to discuss her qualifications and her desire for the position. Sherry was very impressive with her thoughts on the position and ideas for development. At the conclusion of the interview, we unanimously agreed the position would be a great fit for both Sherry and the department. Sherry has been a resident of the town of Raleigh for the past 25 years and has been employed by the police department for the past 22 years. Sherry is trained as both an emergency dispatcher as well as a reserve police officer. Her knowledge of both disciplines will only enhance her ability to move the communications division forward. I recommend the Board of Selectmen appoint Sherry David to the position of lead dispatcher. Respectfully submitted, Scott A. Dumas, Chief of Police. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have anything to add to that. I told Sherry that if she wanted to be here tonight. She didn't know she had a conflict or not, but I told her I was going to talk about it and embarrass her anyways. But you did that for me when you read the letter into place. I think I'm very excited that we recommended Sherry for this position. She has a lot of passion for, the town of Raleigh and in particular the police department. So I enthusiastically recommend her as our lead dispatcher position.
Excellent. Any comments?
Yeah, no, just knowing Sherry for all far back as I can remember, apparently 25 years when she moved in. She's done a great job up there and good with the public and deals very well with the police department issues and dispatch issues, and as a reserve police officer also. I think it's a good fit, and I hope that I think she'll do real well there.
Any?
Nope, sounds like a good appointment.
I agree with Dave. I mean, she has done a great job up there.
Call
I'll
for
make a
vote.
motion to appoint her as lead dispatcher.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Sherry David as a lead dispatcher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Express our congratulations to her. And
Yep, sure. Well, thank you very much.
good luck.
Okay. We have Board of Selectmen, Town Hall, 139 Main Street, Raleigh. Dear board members, I hereby recommend the following appointments to the Raleigh Police Department, effective March 3rd, 2017, and to expire June 30th, 2017. Stephen M. Levesque, Reserve Police Officer. Noah T. Merrow, Reserve Police Officer. Respectfully, Scott A. Dumas, Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give you a little bit more background on both Noah and Stephen, we did check Stephen's ID. He is 21.
I look a solid 15.
Both are graduates of Triton High School. Noah has an associate's degree from London Community College, and Stephen's currently attending MAC College, where he hopes to obtain his bachelor's degree in May of this year.
Excellent.
Both candidates are unrelated graduates. Did Reserve Intermittent Academy. We were very pleased with the output that they had in that process. These are two of the three. We have one more that we're hoping to hire from the process, but we present both Noah and Stephen tonight for you as a recommendation, and we think both of them will not only grow with the town, but also, you know, with the police department. Hope to have them both here for a long time coming.
Excellent, excellent.
Either of you guys would like to say something? Here's your chance.
I'd just like to thank you guys for the opportunity to serve the town.
I second that. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the town and the police force.
I'll say one thing, we've had a lot of turnovers and retirements and promotions, and it seems like the chief's in here every week or every other week. But we're glad that he's coming up with good candidates, both for the full-time positions and the reserve positions. And it's a difficult job, and, you know, we congratulate you on getting appointed and wish you good luck, and I'm sure you're probably both looking at having a long and that delightful police career ahead. It's a tough job today. It's probably tougher than what it's ever been. And you look around at what's going on and everything that's happening, and we've got a fine command staff up at the police department now. We're very happy with the chief and the captain and the sergeant we have, and so we look forward to welcoming you on board.
I also echo those sentiments entirely.
I agree.
Yep, absolutely.
Motion?
I'll give you a motion to hire both officers, reserve police officers.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Stephen Levesque and Noah Merrow as reserve patrolmen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
You're in.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good luck to you. Thank you around, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Very much.
Yep, take care.
Happy?
Thank you.
And when are you gonna retire?
Not for a long while yet.
Chief, just one second, I see they put new traffic lights up there at 133 and Route 1. Is that gonna solve all the accident problems? Or is
Oh,
it-
I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Yeah, did you see that, the new lights going in?
No.
Yeah, new traffic
Yeah.
lights. They put the poles up a while back, and today they were up there installing the new traffic signals, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I just want to note that this meeting is being audio and visually recorded digitally by our RCM cable people. Okay, we do have citizens query coming up in about 2 minutes. Okay, I'm working on time so far. We do have a 7:30 appointment with Superintendent Diane Forget. We'll go into general business and Northeast Mass Mosquito Control and Wetlands Management District notice on helicopter application of a larvicide. 2 Essex County newspapers from John Moak, Acting Director, February 14th, 2017, legal notice. Please include the following legal notice in the next edition of all Essex County newspapers. Should you require any further information, please contact me at 978-352-2800. Legal notice, aerial application to control mosquito larvae on coastal salt marshes in upland habitat. The Northeast Massachusetts Mosquito Control and Wetlands Management District will conduct helicopter applications of the biological larvicide BTI to control mosquito larvae over the salt marshes in Salisbury, Newburyport, Newbury, Raleigh, and Ipswich, and any other new subscribing community if requested. Excuse me. A spraying application to freshwater habitat may also be an option for supporting communities within the district at the request of the local Board of Health, as in the past. Applications will be conducted as necessary during daylight hours from April 1st, 2017 through October of 2017. The material to be applied, oh dear, BTI, Bacillus, it's a variation of something else, is a natural bacterium found in soil and water. BTI is very selective larvicide with little or no effect on humans, pets, wildlife, pollinators, and most other beneficial insects. BTI targets mosquito larvae as and a few other closely related aquatic insects in the fly family. The BTI will be applied by helicopter flying low and directly over the salt marsh and/or upland habitat. Residents need not take any special precautions due to the safety of BTI and because the application will occur directly over wetlands. For further information, contact John Moak, Acting Director of the Northeast Massachusetts Mosquito Control and Wetlands Management District at 978-352-2800. So that's just informational.
Yes.
And that will be between the months of April, from April 1st through October. Okay. We'll go on to new business. Do I want to do new business? Okay. New business number 1. Dear boards and departments, the planning board has received a request to modify the existing approved special permit site plan review related to the above cited property, which proposes to construct a new 40,000 square foot light industrial use building. The request is filed by Ed Surratt, trustee, Prime Realty Trust. They are requesting an expansion of the approved parking facilities. The public hearing for this item will be held on Wednesday, March 8th, 2017. In that regard, if your department would review the proposal and provide me with any comments you might have sometime before noon on Monday, March 6th, 2017. I have attached this packet, a copy of the application and submittal materials. Please review this information and forward any written questions, comments, or concerns to the planning board office. If you have any questions or concerns which you need if you require additional supplemental documentation, please contact me by phone at 978-948-5549 or by email at kurtbaker@townofraleigh.com. Sincerely, Kurt Baker, Town Planner. All right?
Mr. Chairman, the 40,000 square foot figure in the letter is inaccurate. It's a much smaller building. If you look later on in the application, it's really about 7,000 square feet. So I just wanted to point that out. And also that the building itself was approved by the planning board many years ago. For some reason, they never got around until building it until recently. So the only thing that's at issue in this application is the size of their parking lot. They want to have a bigger parking lot. That's the only thing that's before the board at this point.
So the building itself has already been approved several years ago.
Yeah, it was approved many years ago now. So just about the parking lot at this point.
Anybody else with a comment? Bob?
No, other than this item here, this says that the property has 95.241 square feet. 95,000.
That's probably,
I think that was made in the original.
That's
layout.
that's probably the whole lot, lot 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a second building going on that
Yeah,
same lot, right?
right. Like I said, the foundation's there already. You can get a glimpse of it when you drive by.
They could use more parking, because when you go by there.
Apparently,
there's,
that's what they
There is a
think.
shortage of spaces, so I have no problem with it,
Yeah.
so.
No problem.
No.
Yeah, it states here that the foundation has already been constructed
Right.
under the previously approved special permit and building permit. 38 new spaces. Oh. Rennie?
Is this proximate to the, remember you had the request for a school playground?
That same area, it's the same,
In the same area?
It's the same area. They have withdrawn their application, so there's not gonna be a playground there. They're looking elsewhere in town.
It's not moved.
Any other comments? Do we have any questions, comments to forward
Nope.
to the planning board?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to skip over new business number 2 because that's Pine Grove, and we'll hold that for the superintendent. And I'll go on to the item number 3, which is discuss Community Preservation Committee meeting on March 9th, 2017, and funding requests. And we have a copy of the notice of the open meeting for the Community Preservation Committee agenda. The agenda items are approved meeting minutes, financial information, backland at 221 Main Street. Number 3 is elevator annex, ADA compliance of historical building. Number 4 is the Board of Selectmen request for funds for completion of Town Hall window project. And number 5 is the vetting process for the final document with changes from last meeting. Bob?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, as we probably already know pretty much, the town is looking to purchase 3.5 acres of backland at 221 Main Street. What's interesting about this particular parcel is that it abuts the town's current playing fields and the town's Brad Street property. And its way to get to it actually is through the Pine Grove School driveway and then parking lot. And bring it all together. So it was a few years ago, we bought actually 2 pieces of property from 2 butters that were next to the Pine Grove School.
Okay.
And we have some playing fields out there already.
Right.
The owner of this land actually came to me and asked if we were still interested in it. At one point, we had tried to buy it, and we didn't get that far. So, asked if we'd still be interested, and I told them that we were still interested. And that's what this is about, is trying to get some funding from CPA and use it as recreation fields. And one of the reasons we want to do that is that the ball field at well number 2 on Havel Street is not going to be there much longer,
Right.
because the DEP stepped in, and it's a Zone 1 area for the drinking water well, and we have to take the field out of there. So we're hoping that this comes through, and we'll have a nice field down by the school.
At a time when we're trying to expand the ball fields and the playing fields so that the kids have something to play on, and to lose that field is not a good prospect.
And this will be a big help too, if the school project goes forward, it'll give us the ability to expand the playing
Excuse me,
fields.
when the school.
Yeah, so, well, when. Give us the ability to expand the playing field, so we're gonna lose space while the project's going on, I'm sure, so. And
Right.
ultimately, if everything goes forward, it'll be a nice area for recreation, and will provide parking for the school, as well as the school allows parking for the fields, and it should be a nice mix there, so. And a
Excellent.
good part of it too, it's a flat piece of land, so that to develop a ball field back there is gonna take minimal amounts of money compared to what Brad Street was gonna take hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it playable. This is something that we can make good use of, and we really need playing fields, there's no ifs, ands, or
We
buts
do.
about it.
We really do.
There's no water problem back there? No?
It's all flat. If there's any, there might be some puddling, but I think
Towards the
there might be a little piece of wetland in the back.
north side of the edge of the property
Mhm.
tends to get a little soggy, but most of it is pretty much solid.
Yeah. Basically, it's a good piece of land. I mean, it's something that we can't afford not to get, because there aren't many good parcels of flat land that's available, especially in conjunction with the other 2 pieces of property
Well,
and
yeah.
the school, to make
Make it that close to the school.
maximum use
Yeah.
is gonna be good.
I mean, it's abuts everything that we own.
And one of the things when we talk about the school project is in terms of the development of the parking area and the access way, which is gonna be a couple of $1 million, I guess, from what I'm understanding.
Mhm.
But that'll provide good parking and access for the fields too, which we're gonna need, so it really kind of gels both projects together really nicely, so hopefully we'll get both of them passed, and maybe good long-term benefit for the town.
And we at this point, working to get a survey done of the property itself that we're looking at. So that's coming along.
Excellent.
Do we need a motion,
Excellent.
Debbie, to ask this?
Is the board prepared to make a monetary amount request to the CPC? So that I can file that
Do you have any idea what a survey's gonna cost?
on both the first and the second item that we just discussed? The survey, no, I don't know. I'm getting the quote right now from Meridian. But I didn't know if we're prepared tonight or if this is going to be taken up again next week.
Wanna wait, and just, we'll okay the proposals, and then we'll put the money figures before,
We'll have the figures for
Lot-
next week.
we'll authorize the town administrator to attach
Well,
money
Mr.
figures.
Murray is working on the actual, he's in conversations with the property owner
Right.
on that. So he would need to present that to the board, and I'm trying to get that quote this week from Meridian for the survey work.
Okay.
Wanna wait till next week then to,
Actually, we did an appraisal.
yeah,
We had an
Okay.
appraisal done, and it came out to $360,000.
Okay.
Okay, but that included all of the backland plus the house and the front property, house and barn and garage. So
So is the entire lot?
yeah. So I requested to her, if she would accept 355. And she said she would.
okay.
So we can try to go ahead with that part of it. We'll have a little bit better idea once we get the appraisal, not the appraisal, but the surveying done, so that we know how many acres we've got. The tax records show that whole piece of property is about 5 acres. And the field that's in the back that we're looking at is about 3.5 acres. So,
Okay, you want a motion, Debbie,
We're requesting funds from the CPA for that amount.
Yes, if,
Was for the survey or for the purchase price?
Oh, for
that's
the
the
purchase
purchase
price.
price, the survey is from the administrative account, a request. Not for a town meeting appropriation, but at the administrative account.
Okay.
We've used that for different things.
that shouldn't be an
Appraisals,
issue.
surveys.
They do that all the time.
Make that motion?
But the
I'll make the
entire,
motion.
the entire parcel is valued at 360,000?
Yes,
And we're talking about paying 350 just for the back part of it?
yes. Well, that's what she requested when she first talked to me.
I mean, how much is the back part worth? I mean, if it's,
I thought the back part
Well,
was,
you've been given that appraisal several months ago
Yeah.
to review, so it's the back portion. So if you need some more time to review
I-
that, then,
maybe I didn't look at it closely enough, but I thought they were just talking about, they were appraising the part we were buying.
That's right.
not
I
whole
thought the
lot.
back portion was 350,000.
Well, that makes a big difference.
It was.
Yeah.
Because with the house and everything, it's gotta be 700,000 or 800,000, because a house, houses today in that area gotta be 300,000 by themselves. So I think, if I remember right, and I might be incorrect, I haven't looked at it lately, but I think it was 360 for the 3.5, approximate 3.5 acres.
Okay, well,
Well,
that would make a
that
big
was,
difference.
well, when they gave us that figure, that was the whole lot. When the appraisal was done, it was for the whole lot. They did the house, they did the barn, they did everything.
Okay, why don't
I think we need to look at that.
we better wait till next week and we can review it again, because I didn't interpret it that way, but we wanna be sure, so why don't
We'll
we'll wait on that,
table this until next week.
yeah.
Put it on next week's agenda.
So why don't we table the appraisal
motion-
fee? You might
motion
know
to
by next
table?
week, Debbie, what the cost for the survey would be?
yes, I should have that. That I don't have for tonight,
Right.
but
All right, maybe if we wait till next week on both of these items, we can
Make a motion
have
to
a better
table.
idea.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second,
Motion has been made and seconded to table the agenda item till next week on the community preservation bequest. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And new business number 4, we have a letter from the Raleigh Municipal.
All right, we got the, wait a minute, we got the
Mr.
annex
Chairman,
project.
please, I have 2 more items.
Oh, I'm
under
sorry.
that. New business number 3.
On the annex elevator, we're gonna be going to the CPC for the cost to construct the elevator in the annex. At this point, we don't have a cost estimate yet. Thursday, Debbie and myself are going to meet with the architect, the Historical District Commission people to present the general plans on any issues they might have with the elevator going in over there. And once we get the project costs from the architect, which should be pretty quick, right? We expecting?
Yeah, we were hoping it would be ready today. but-
Yeah, once again, we're hoping to get that done by next week, so if you wanna table that till next week to get an exact figure,
Okay.
that'll be good. But it's moving forward, and we voted last week or the week before on the internal location of the elevator. And, so far, so good.
And we have, the Board of Selectmen request for funds for the completion of the town hall window project. Do we
Yeah,
have a figure?
just real quick, we got 4 windows left. All the windows in the town hall have been done except for these 4 here.
It's actually 5.
Five windows. The,
1, 2, 3.
well, yeah, 2 and 1 in the back. So we just wanted to finish that project off. And we got, I think, did we have a little bit of money left?
I think we have a little bit.
I think we got a little bit of money left from the original project, and we just wanna get this project buttoned up and wrapped up, and so we're gonna ask for the $35,000 to complete this project. And that way the whole town hall will be done with windows.
Okay. And do we have to take a separate
Yes,
vote?
if the board would like to.
Yeah, I'll give you a
get that
motion to,
ready.
Request?
request $35,000 from CPC to, finish the window project for town hall.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to request $35,000 from the CPC for funds to complete the town hall window project. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we have the vetting process for the final document with changes from the last meeting. I'm not sure what that,
No, Mr. Chairman, my
that's
items are here.
part of the CPC,
It's the second page of your
Okay.
packet, I'm sorry, it must have been,
that's part of the,
that covers
yeah.
it.
Okay,
And, Joe, just so you'll know, I'm gonna be away, at the next CPC meeting, so I won't be able to attend.
oh, okay. All right,
March 9th.
okay, going on to new business number 4. A letter from the Raleigh Municipal Lighting Plant regarding 2017 payment in lieu of taxes. The Raleigh Municipal Light Board has voted to make a payment in lieu of taxes to the town of Raleigh in the amount of $30,321.95. Does the board wish to send a thank you letter to the Raleigh Municipal Light Board?
Yes. I'll give you a motion to
I
accept.
was gonna say, I'd suggest that we vote on that. And I will make a declaration that I am a commissioner on the municipal light plant, so, shouldn't be any issue with that, but
Do we need a motion to accept that money, or they just don't pay it, right?
Yeah, they're not gonna be sending us a bill for
Right,
that,
so we don't need a motion, do we? I don't think we need a motion.
but if the board wants to,
Send a letter to the-
accept
Definitely
the-
Thank
wanna-
you.
accept their.
I'll give you a motion to accept the payment and send them a letter of thanks for this.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to send a, to note the amount received in payment and to say thank you to the Raleigh Municipal Light Board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I'm operating on time tonight.
Yeah, doing good, you're right on time.
Okay, going on to new business number 2.
Might as well use the-
All right,
do
am
this.
I going on to the
Might
appointment?
as well do the superintendent, so close enough.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we do have, Mr. Forget scheduled as an appointment to discuss the Triton budget
Okay.
at 7:30 PM.
Right. So we have a 7:30 appointment to discuss the Triton Regional School District budget and a presentation by the Superintendent of Schools, Brian Forget, tonight, and turn it over to Mr. Forget. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I don't know if I shut this off.
It does look like that red light would indicate that it's off. There we go.
All right. Very good. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Perry was, I believe you were present at the school committee presentation, or you weren't there, but then it was, I made this presentation for the District Communications Committee the following evening. This presentation doesn't speak specifically to the FY18 budget figures. Obviously, we can have a discussion about those as well. But the purpose of this was to take a look at lots of questions that have been raised over the years, recently this year, in regards to our budget, the district budget. It remains a large portion of your budget, or your town budget, as it does for Newbury and for Salisbury. And lots of questions about, as our enrollment has declined, why is it that our costs continue to go up? So I wanted to answer that question. I think it's a good question. I want to come right out and say, I mean, that's a valid question. Why is it when you're educating fewer students, does it cost more dollars to do that? So that was the purpose of this presentation, is to give you a sense of that challenge. I'm going to try and do this quicker than I did for the school committee, because Marissa can confirm, I believe we talked about an hour and 15 minutes. I will make every attempt to do better than half of that quicker. But it's important to be able to look at history. The district, I was amazed, fully regionalized in '94. We're coming on 23 years full regionalization. So it's important to look at where we've been. I chose the last 15 years. There's no science behind those figures other than when I was digging back and trying to get all of this data. I got back 15 years before the clock ran out and I needed to make a presentation. So looking back 15 years, and I think it's important because it provides context for the challenge. Obviously, the district feels the challenges of the budget, and obviously you supporting a third, call it, of the budget. It's obviously it's a considerable challenge for the towns. And part of this is the Chapter 70 formula, and I was pleased. I didn't realize we'd get the opportunity when building this presentation to actually have Senator Tarr, Senator O'Connor Ives, Representative Kelcourse, and Representative Mira were at the DCC meeting a week ago Thursday. So I was pleased that they were also able to hear this, and so they understood the context. And I will say, as I've said before, the state's concept of a regional school, I don't believe fully understood the complexities of the Chapter 70 formula when creating this creature called a regional school. There are many benefits, and obviously the efficiencies, administrative overhead costs, there's great efficiencies, but the formula doesn't recognize those, and the formula then creates huge swings and sways, especially of recent, when the funding of that formula has not kept up with inflation. So that's the purpose of this presentation, because I'm going to go out and say I think we're approaching a crisis point. We're getting, if you look at the last 2 years and then into FY18, we've talked about the swings. Each town feels the swings on a given year, but I feel like the swings in the past years, including for FY18, are large. I think we've always had the ups and downs, and there's always one town who's eating the biggest piece of the pie. I think in last 2 or 3 years, the pieces of the pie have grown incredibly larger for some towns and less than for other towns. So I think we're getting to a point where this formula is going to create a crisis. So the question, as I stated, is why does it cost more dollars to increase a decreasing student population? And then a second question, which is obviously has to guide our work. This isn't a question that is answered quickly in a presentation, but more of a guiding hypothetical question is, how does continuing the status quo, or even worse, the reduction in services, affect our ability to meet the needs of all students? That is our charge. We operate the schools for your town. These are your students, they're our students. And so we have to do everything we can to provide the best possible quality of education. And as I'll talk about in a moment, the students sitting in the seats today are very different than the students sitting in the seats 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I've been out of the classroom for 15 years now, and it's a different world. So, you know, when I started my administrative career, now Reserve Officer Levesque was a student at Newbury Elementary School. So just since now Officer Levesque has left school, things have changed incredibly. So we need to keep that as a guiding question. So if we look at the last 15 years, over the 15 years from 2002 to 17, we have lost 572 students. Again, this is district-wide. I should also say we're counting head counts of students sitting in the seats. We talk about foundation enrollment, which is the students you own. Factor in choice out, charter out. So there's all these different counts that we use within the budget. I'm comparing students sitting in seats this year, which it was at this point about a month ago now, students sitting in seats in 2002. So we've lost 572 students at 17.4% of our student population. During that same time, our student enrollment for special education, our students receiving special education services, has increased from 341 students to 420 students. That's an increase of 79 students. Obviously, with the law of percentages, 341 of 3281, that was 10.39 or 10.4% of our student population was receiving extra supportive services for special needs. In 2017, that figure is now 15.5% of the student population. So while our student population has decreased 572, we've actually increased 79 students for special education services. I'm not going to spend a lot of time analyzing and pontificating on the reasons, because there are many, but these are facts. So other things that we can't put a clear figure on. There are some of these things that we literally cannot count, and there are others that the metrics have changed. For example, we have students with needs, but they don't qualify for an IEP. So they may not meet the qualifications for special needs services, but it doesn't mean that they don't have needs. They might be reading 2 grade levels below benchmark, but that doesn't mean they have a disability. It means there's a gap that we need to fill. Students struggling with anxiety, students living in poverty. Students living in poverty, they used to be, we would count with free and reduced lunch. Now the Department of Ed has come up with an indicator called economically disadvantaged. I'm about 80% sure of what it means exactly, but we've kind of peeled it apart, but it changed the metric. So there were less students qualifying for being economically disadvantaged than there were students receiving free and reduced lunch. That now drives Title I. That now drives the Chapter 70 formula. So now that we've changed this indicator, there are effects across the board. Homeless students, students with a trauma history, students who are English language learners, and then also, this was a question, students in the 18 to 22 years of age. That is not a new law that we are required to provide services to age 22, but we are seeing the number of students who are qualifying for those services and not achieving a diploma and staying with us till age 22. Generally, those students are on a more vocational track or are severely disabled and in a program where they're receiving services either in the district or outside the district. So we're spending about $1.4 million educating students in that 18 to 22-year-old category. So how have we adapted? Obviously, things change. We're only good if we adapt. So to start off, just to make sure we're understanding a full-time equivalency. So we measure whether it's students or we're measuring staff levels, we're measuring as an FTE, full-time equivalent. So as an example, we have 3 classes of kindergarten at Pine Grove. We have 2 full days and we have 1 half day. Actually, don't think that's accurate at this moment, but we have, is that what we have right now? So wherever it is, so there's 2.5. So there's 3 teachers, so the head count is 3. But the FTE is 2.5 because we're measuring it against the equivalent of a full-time. So when we say an FTE, we're measuring a half teacher counts as a half. So I'm gonna break these down into administration, offices and support, district-wide operations, custodial, cafeteria services, and then educators, instructional staff as well. So if we look at it, district-wide administrators, we have actually increased across the board by 1.0 across that time. If the committee table, we talked about lots of different titles, and we used to have more, we'll call it senior level administrators. What we now have are 4 senior level administrators. We have a superintendent, chief academic officer, a special education administrator, and a school business administrator. Beyond that, we have coordinators. And so where there were other senior level administrators in that and other similar positions, it's a lesser salary position, if you will. So the functions are still there, and what we've added in 15 years is obviously technology is not what it was 15 years ago. And so we now have a director of technology. So that's actually the only addition to the mix. As far as school-based administrators, we have 1 less assistant principal at the high school. We have a half-time less director of guidance at the high school. You know, in the budget proposal, we're actually proposing restoring that. Through my entry planning process and my listening tour through this fall, heard time and time again about guidance and the need for more time with students. We actually need more counselors as well, but it's a chipping away. It's a starting point to address a significant need. And we also have a 0.4 more of an athletic director. Previously, athletics was just 9 through 12, competitive through Maya. Now through MIAA, we are competitive 7 through 12, so we have grades 7 and 8 competing in interscholastic athletics as well. So with that addition, we now have a full-time athletic director managing all of those students. As far as district-wide support, we've increased by 0.6. There's actually a decrease of 1.4 across the district in general support. And in that time, again, as we talked about, we've added a director of technology. We've also added 2 technology support individuals. So those 2 folks, one is specifically, she is full-time data support, and the other person is, Brett is full-time technology support. Literally, he's the hardware software guy, supporting devices across 5 schools, 4 separate locations. So that increase of 0.6 is a little bit, again, you have to take both of those into consideration. As far as district-wide operations, custodial, maintenance, and cafeteria, we've actually decreased 7.5 positions. Obviously, it's easy and logical. If you're serving less lunches, that's an easy decrease with cafeteria workers. Custodian maintenance, we've trimmed back. We still maintain the buildings as best we can, and I think we do the best we can with preventative maintenance, but we certainly have trimmed staff back there as well. Now we get to the meat of the discussion here as far as classroom educators. So I'm going to call a classroom educator any individual who was working with a whole group, a large group. Talk about art teachers, music teachers, PE, technology, not just the 4th grade teacher or the high school biology. Any teacher delivering large group instruction. So in 2002, we had 210 FTEs. As of this year, we have 158.4 FTEs. So that is a reduction, it's bad math, it's actually, can't be 0.5. So roughly 51 and a half less teachers than we had in 2002. So our student population has decreased 17.4%. Our teaching population, classroom teaching, has dropped 24.5%. So as we said, we have to adapt. So going back to that, the student population, the change in special education enrollment, as well as all those quiet factors we talked about. We previously delivered much more large group instruction. I guarantee when all of us were sitting in a classroom, we were sitting with a large group. We delivered content, you received everything you could, and then we moved on. And if you didn't get it, well, that was up to you to figure out the difference. We are charged with meeting every student's need. And so in order to do that, we have to provide a whole lot more smaller group instruction. So this is really the impetus for the change in the cost, is that while small group instruction existed in 2002, It didn't exist to the degree that it exists now. So let's look at staffing levels, we'll call them interventions. So teachers who are providing direct small group instruction, sometimes one-on-one instruction, special education teachers, math teachers, reading specialists. So again, this is individual or very small group instruction. So that count is up. There were 44.5 FTEs in 2002. We have 63 FTEs in 2017. So there's an increase of 18.5 FTEs over the 15-year period. For staffing, for guidance, adjustment counselors, social workers, there's often confusion when we code a 2700 series guidance counselor at the elementary school. They're not guidance like high school guidance. It's a DESE function, they're adjustment counselors. But we've increased 2.5, and they've actually been social workers that we've added to the mix over those 15 years. Instructional assistants, students who are on an IEP, who the term is the least restrictive environment. We need to put that child where it is the least restrictive. Obviously, the classroom teacher with his or her peers is the least restrictive. So in order for a student to engage with the curriculum, sometimes they need a student or an assistant who's working with them one-on-one, oftentimes one-on-2 or 3. That's the reason for an instructional assistant. We've added 28.8 FTEs of instructional assistants over the same 15-year period. So if you look at the total decrease of 51.5 FTEs of classroom teachers, and then you take those intervention and supports individuals that we've added in those 3 categories of true interventionist, special ed teacher, guidance, social work, and instructional assistants, you've got a difference. We've lost 51.5 FTEs classroom teachers, but we've gained almost 50 in FTEs, 49.8 FTEs with other targeted support. To note here, the 28.8 IAs, that's a much less costly. I mean, the salaries for an instructional assistant are significantly lower, in some cases 20% of what, 25% of what a teacher is making. So it's a much less costly endeavor, but nonetheless, we've replaced those supports with a different type of support. Any questions? I should stop and make sure. This is where I think people start to gloss over. No? We're good? All right.
Just one quick question. The classroom sizes that you have, does that include the special ed people in that class or what? Let's say if you have a classroom of 16 people or 23, okay, does that include any special ed people, or are they considered a separate class or what?
If I told you our class size at grade 4 are 19, 20, and 21, and there were 15 students on IEPs in grade 4, those class sizes would reflect those students as well. So all students on an IEP, unless they're placed, the term is a substantially separate classroom, they are considered part of a classroom and spend, hopefully, as much of the day as possible. And the vast, vast majority of students spend the entire day with the class, with the support of a special education teacher or an instructional assistant. Does that make sense?
Right.
Just in case anybody, I was going to jump in earlier, that anybody listening is wondering about an IEP. It's an individual education plan.
Yes. Yes.
For a
So to
student.
clarify, so if a student qualifies for special education services, the student has to have a documented disability. The difference, to go back to that student who may be, for myriad reasons, may be reading 2 years below benchmark, that doesn't mean that that student has a disability. If there's a documented disability, we'll take an easy one, dyslexia. That's a documented disability. They qualify for an individualized education plan, an IEP, and receive special education services. So when we say students receiving special education services, that's the reason. They have a documented disability that provides a whole host of protections and services. Okay.
Thank you.
So over the same time, what these totals don't reflect is several reductions that we have made in positions. So there are several classroom teachers that, if we were at our target class sizes in the 20 north or south of 20, we would say the majority of those 51.5 classroom teachers were reduced through attrition. When you have fewer students, you need fewer classroom teachers. There are still some classes, we at Pine Grove, we were looking at grades 2 and 4 for next year, that are approaching the mid-20s. In this budget, we were not able, even with the figures as they stand today, we were not able to resolve that issue. So there are certainly some classroom teachers that we would still say have been reduced and really should be replaced. We don't have instructional technology specialists. We have one that's being shared across all 3 schools this year, and it's being proposed to be removed for next year. We used to have full-time math and reading specialists. Math are now half-time. Special education, so to put this in perspective, in 2002, there were, or even before that, we had a full-time evaluation team chairperson that ran all special education meetings, and a full-time clerk at each of the schools. So 5 ETCs, 5 clerks. We had an administrator of special education. We had an administrative assistant for the special education administrator. We now have special ed administrator and his assistant, Sandy, and then we have 5 half-time ETCs with no clerks at the buildings. So every IEP that's processed is processed through a half-time ETC funneled through our office out to parents. And we do our best to meet timelines. These are very strictly monitored, federally regulated timelines. We don't always hit them. In the budget proposal, we had proposed increasing the ETCs back to full-time. In the end, that did not land in the budget, but there are certainly, these are needs that are very real, and we're coming up against challenges that could put us in it as a considerable problem if we're not meeting federally regulated timelines. There have been some general stipends for curriculum, leadership, professional development that have been lost, and then there's quite literally no professional development funding left. It's had dwindled over the years. We had been supported through grants, Title IIA, the IDEA grant, and there's just, all those grants have dried up and are currently or are in the process of going away. So that has been a considerable loss. So if then the staffing has been relatively equivalent, what's the driver here? So again, valid question. People often say, you know, teachers, are they getting, the question is asked, are they getting exorbitant raises every year? They're getting steps, they're getting columns, they're getting COLAs. And then folks ask about the Triton teachers as far as being competitive. Are their salaries competitive? Are we paying them too much? Is that the reason for the costs? So I wanted to take a look at 2 comparisons. So again, this doesn't include steps. I'm sorry, this doesn't include a teacher that can make steps for their first years of their career, or column movement based on credentials. If they have a master's degree and they get another master's degree or 40 more credits, they can make lateral movement. But this is just to compare 2 spots on the salary grid to show the increase in the grid over the 15 years. So we'll take, again, columns, bachelor's, master's plus 15 credits, 30 credits. So those are the columns. The steps are years of experience, 1 through 11. A B1 is a teacher with coming in and as her or his first year of teaching experience with just a bachelor's degree. In 2002, that teacher was earning $29,865. In 2017, that teacher is earning $44,348. That's an increase of 48.5%, or 3.2% per year. The difference is in 2002, I shouldn't say the difference, as factor in that, in 2007, rather, not 2002, we drastically changed the teacher's salary grid. We were very competitive at the higher end of a more veteran teacher with more credentials, more credits. We were not competitive at all at the lower end, the bachelor's end of the scale. So we made some pretty significant increases at the lower end of the scale and had the very normal increases at the top end of the scale. We went from 9 columns down to 6 columns. We went from 12 steps down to 11 steps. So that was a pretty significant change back in 2007. But when you look at the 3.2% increase per year for a cost of living adjustment, that's high, and that's because of that significant adjustment that was made in 2007.
What has it been since, say, 2008 to the present, do you know? Or
So,
if you just looked at from 2008 to the present, which has been a period of low inflation,
Yep.
historically low inflation.
so then, let me keep going, because then
Okay.
since that point, it's followed the same trend. So, for the other end of the scale, the M60, so that's a teacher who has a master's degree plus 60 credits, graduate credits beyond a master's degree. Step 12 in 2002 was making 62,721. That same teacher would be on a step 11 currently, because again, we removed one step. So that's been a 34.7% increase over the 15 years, or an average of 2.3% per year. So almost all since that correction in 2007, every other COLA has been applied universally to the entire scale. And that's been that same COLA that was pretty much driving every other adjustment, whether it's other contracts or individuals who are not under a collective bargain association or administrators have had that same COLA on average per year. So it's been I would say since 2010, it's been mostly ones and twos. Early on, it was more the twos and threes, was the average. So when I started over here in 2010 in the district office, not 2010, 2005, yeah, I would say it's been mostly ones and twos as far as negotiated increases with the teachers. I don't believe there's been a 3. I would have to go back and look at that for a fact, but I don't believe there's been a 3 since 2008. It's been mostly ones and twos.
But that's just the COLA adjustment,
That's
not
just
the
a COLA,
step increase
correct. Yep.
or the
Yep.
lateral
Yep,
increase.
absolutely. Yep. So, and again, the committee has maintained wanting to be competitive. They don't want to be the high end of the spectrum. They don't want to be the low end of the spectrum. We want to make sure that we're competitive, so that when we have candidates coming in, we are attracting the best and the brightest and the best candidates, and we're able to attract them with the best salaries, or with competitive salaries, not the highest salaries. If we look at inflation over this 15-year period, and again, I'm pulling this right off of the BLS, I'm not making this up, $100 in 2002 is equivalent of $133.41 in 2017. So 33.41% increase for inflation in 15 years. Not very far off from the 34.7% for the general COLA increases. Again, the bachelor's 1 teacher is not a good representation because of that correction year in 2007, but have pretty much followed inflation for the COLAs. Again, as you said, Joe, it's not, teachers make steps for us for their first 11 years, and then are able to make column movement with a year's notice for any time that they make column and credit movement, or column movement rather, for credits. So if the salaries, obviously salaries are a budget driver, if they're staying in not lockstep, but are staying in relative comparison to inflation, then what is it that's killing us? So if we look at health insurance, again, the 15-year inflation factor is 33.41%. From 2002 to 2017, our health insurance has grown 182.94%. Almost 183% increase in 15 years. Healthcare is growing 5.5 times the pace of inflation. So in 2002, we were paying $1.875 million, and at that point, that was a 75-25 split for employee district share. In 2017, we're paying roughly $5.3 million, and that's, now a 70-30 split. So the district is paying 5% less. We as employees are paying 5% more of the cost. This has been reviewed. We have a public employee committee that negotiates all rates with all associations every 3 years. We have made plan design changes. We've gone through the process with healthcare reform. We have not We have not moved to the GIC. Every year we have, or I'm sorry, every 3 years with the review cycle, we use a consultant and have to do the test to make sure that the GIC isn't more competitive and the rates aren't better. And the tests each time have shown that we are getting a better rate, I believe, same as you through Maya. The plans have been competitive. You know, even to look at the cost share, there can be an adjustment, obviously, to from the 70-30, 65-20, 35. That would be a one-time savings, and then we continue to grow, again, on top of that, as everyone's rates do. We're budgeting for an 8.5% increase in next year's budget, based on what we've heard from Maya for our plans for next year. The other driver that we've talked a lot about is special education costs. I should say this is not, these are not drivers that are unique to Triton. If you followed the Foundation Reserve or Foundation Review Commission, looking at the foundation budget statewide, these were the two factors that came out loud and clear, high and above all other factors, as far as the reason why Chapter 70 hasn't kept up with the costs in districts. So again, 33.4% is the inflation cost. Special education cost increases over that same 15-year period is 95.9, almost 96%. So the cost of special education services is about 3 times the rate of inflation. Again, here spending 4.76 in 2002, spending about 9.3 in 2017. One caveat here, obviously, there are 79 more students than there were in 2002. So there's a higher student population adding to those overall costs. So if we look at our total operating expenditures for this calculation, you can see I'm including general fund operating costs, which is the budget, if you will, that is apportioned from the towns, but also money that we spend and is detailed in the back of the budget for of choice revenue, students who are choiced into the district and we receive tuition. All those tuitions are basically paying for teachers' salaries. Monies we receive from Circuit Breaker, which is the state's funding mechanism to help pay for special education costs. So we receive 75% of all amounts 4 times the foundation figure. So roughly any amount above, call it 45,000, we should be receiving about 75% of that back from the state. But if it's costing less than 45,000 to educate that student, we don't get any money from the state. So that includes general fund choice, it includes circuit breaker spending, and then also our federal IDEA grant. Under entitlement grants, you've heard of Title I. IDEA is a federal entitlement grant where we get money directly from federal sources for special education costs. So in 2002, we were spending $27.2 million, and this year, all combined, we're spending $41.1 million. That's a 15-year increase of close to $13.9 million, or 51%. That's an average annual increase of 3.4%. To note, almost 30% of the 51%, so almost 3/5, almost 60% of the 50% increase is attributed just to healthcare and special education costs. So those two costs, being so hard to control, have contributed a significant portion to that overall increase. But again, on average, the increase in spending that the district has seen is 3.4%. I want to make sure to put a slide in here, because the hope was that this PowerPoint, people have walked away with it from several meetings, to make sure that this is not pointing blame at special education. Students who require these services deserve, whether you believe legally or morally, I believe both, deserve these services. We have a right, or they have a right to receive them, and we have an obligation to provide them. The reality is they're incredibly expensive services. I believe Senator Tarr, maybe it was Senator O'Connor Ives, who was there, I think it was Senator O'Connor Ives, brought up the interplay of healthcare costs, and there are several students, I believe we're spending roughly $180,000 for nurses for nursing services for students for school time hours. Not a huge chunk of the overall cost when you look at it, but $180,000 for medical services. We're certainly not in the medical field, and there's a discussion now about how can those services be somehow paid for through the state, through private health care, something, because that's not an educational cost. So again, kind of goes back to that whole discussion about, it's not about whether they deserve the services, it's how to fund the services. So if we look at, as a picture, in 2002, special education and health insurance made up roughly a quarter of our total spending. So we had 75.62%, I'm calling it, for everything else, everything. 2017, you can see that that piece of the pie, or those two pieces of the pie, have consumed a significantly larger portion, and we now have under 65%. We have 64.4% of the total budget for everything else. So we've lost 11% of the budget as far as our ability to spend it on other things, because it's been controlled by those two major factors. And again, going back to the Foundation Budget Review Commission came up with the same two factors as being a significant underfunded portion in the budget. If the foundation budget, which is how you determine Chapter 70, if the foundation budget hasn't been increased to reflect true spending, we're never going to get more Chapter 70. So that has been the issue. And for me, when I was going through this is a significant picture for me that starts to really drive home the point that this is not just about the district spending frivolously. This is about factors that are mostly beyond our control. And obviously there are choices that can be made, but they're factors that are driving many of the decisions. So if we look at Chapter 70, the exact same 15 years, we are actually receiving $324,000 less in 2017 than we did in 2002. So that's not adjusted for inflation. That's not, we're receiving less comparable dollars. We are actually receiving $324,000 less than we did in 2017. I'm sorry, in 2002. So over that 15-year period, in the 30, I forget the exact figure, 33.41% inflation factor, we're actually receiving 3.65% less in the offsetting revenue source, which offsets the assessments that we make to the towns. So then we look at the next result, or the net result I should say, is the assessment. So in 2002, we were assessing the towns $15.6 million. In 2017, we're assessing close to $28.4 million. So over the 15-year increase, we've increased our assessments to the towns by almost 82%. If I go back. So again, our average annual increase is 3.4%, but because of all the changes with Chapter 70 and its failure to keep up with actual spending, that is the reason for the massive increases in the assessments to the towns. It's not that the assessment or that the spending has increased at almost 5.5%. It's that you, as one of the three towns, are picking up more of what the state used to pay for. So it's another very helpful graph. So in 2002, the red is paid for by Chapter 70, so that's the state's portion. The local assessment is the blue line. So the amount of our total operating paid for by Chapter 70 in red, local assessment in blue. So in 2002, the Chapter 70, the state contributed 34% of our total operating costs. You as one of the member towns, the three towns collectively contributed 59.81%, 60%. And again, those numbers don't add up because there's other revenues, there's regional transport, there's Medicaid reimbursement, so there's other small amounts. In 2017, you're now paying close to 74%, 73.78%. And the state is only contributing 22.22%. So again, painting that picture, and I was glad to see our state representatives and senators there, and I know they fight on our behalf, but this is where I go back to the the concept of a regional district is not understood by the Chapter 70 formula. I don't mean the people don't understand it. I mean that the formula does not understand how financially how a regional school functions. So this is what happens. We're not unique. The town of Rowley is not unique in feeling the pain, as obviously Newbury's, we can't say along with Newbury. Newbury's had a good couple of years. But this story is repeated across the state with other regional schools. I'm actually attending, I think next week now, it keeps getting postponed, a Rural Schools Coalition. Mike Bonaconte, who's a superintendent out in Mohawk Trail, way out. We actually qualify as a rural school district based on their student population, student per square mile. So we qualify as a low category rural school, but there are folks trying to help the state understand that it's different. This is not, especially in a region, and especially in a rural region, there are factors in play that the state never understood when they passed very well-meaning acts and laws of how to fund schools.
Are you saying that non-regional schools haven't seen this decrease in Chapter 70 funding? Or
Well, the decrease, so the change in Chapter 70 in urban areas has been much less drastic, absolutely.
So why is that?
The formula, that's, I said I was gonna make this quick.
In 20 words or less.
So again, 1993, ed reform was passed. The goal was by 2000 was to get every city and town paying what the state believed was their fair portion. So we'll pick on Lawrence. The city of Lawrence, they believe in their numbers, doesn't have the capacity to raise tax revenue like you in the town of Rowley. So the state is contributing upwards of 90% of the total budget to the city of Lawrence. So the goal was by 2000 to get, and I'm way oversimplifying, anyone who's listening to this at home or abroad or anywhere, this is very simplifying, but the goal was in that 7-year period, 93 to 2000, was to get everyone so that they were paying what the formula believed was the fair amount. So we're now, those 7 years plus 17 more, and the formula hasn't been adjusted correctly so that it was reflecting. So again, we have our foundation budget, and here's what we spend. The difference is what is made up of Chapter 70. So if the foundation is way down here, and our real spending is way down here, I'm sorry, I'm doing that backwards. So the minimum locals is what you all have to pay, then there's the foundation budget. I don't care what we're actually spending. But if the minimums keep changing, and the foundation doesn't keep rising with real costs, we're never getting the difference of what we're actually spending. So it's, every city and town has a different story as far as this, what that chart looks like. But in an urban area, it is a significantly less drastic shift. But statewide, and the state is not shy about saying, it's pushing the burden onto the local tax base. So if I was going to pontificate, I would say that's great. So if you're going to give local authority and responsibility for funding, then give us more local control. Can't have all the control and the less funding. It just doesn't work.
But it's the regional schools in the small school districts that are suffering the burden.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's a
Paying
good
the
that's a good
price.
point. So it's this speaks to the amount that Rowley, Newbury, and Salisbury are paying. This is in the aggregate. What you then have to layer onto that is how that 73, almost 74% that's being assessed to the 3 towns, how that's being apportioned. That's the second piece of the chaotic puzzle, which has, in this budget, Newbury going backwards, $50,000, in Salisbury and Rowley seeing massive swings up. So that's the second piece of the puzzle. This is just about how much the state is contributing in Chapter 70. I'm not going to go through that. So what do we do now? I think I've been the superintendent for 8 months. There are a lot of things that we are doing and I want to continue doing. I think we need to review how we deliver instruction. I've spent a lot of time listening to parents, teachers, town officials. I think there are a lot of things that we do really well. I think there are some efficiencies we can find. So we certainly need to review our pedagogy and how we deliver instruction. We have to review our support systems, our student services. An example, the middle school and high school principals are working now with groups of teachers to hopefully align the schedules of both schools to provide, it's dual-fold. It's to provide better opportunities for students. So if there's an aligned schedule, if there's a student in the 7th or 8th grade who is ready for a more advanced math class, we have the opportunity for that student to go take that class at the high school if the schedules align. If the schedules don't align, it doesn't work. So there's obviously it's driven by the benefit for students, but there's also efficiencies with teachers. That as with a declining enrollment, declining student enrollment, when we're trimming teachers here and there, if we can maintain a full teacher and give him or her two classes over at the middle school and 3 classes over at the high school, there's efficiencies with the caseloads as well. So there's certainly work that we have to do to continue the review to make sure we're spending our dollars wisely. But we also have to, I mean, there are additional educators that we've identified year after year that we haven't been able to fund. We need to make some pretty substantial strategic investments in curricula. The budget for FY18 addresses science. We had proposed a specialist at each of the elementary schools to help really jump into the science, for lack of a better term, quickly. There is some PD included in the figure, but there's a significant change with the way we teach science at the elementary schools. That's going to require a lot of work. And it's more than just the curriculum, it's more than just the how and what we teach, it's the delivery of that content. So we ended up not having any STE teachers. That was originally, we had 3. But we decided to put the curriculum in and work with the resources we have to at least make a start.
And that's a new program.
That's a new science program. Yep. That's K through 8. Current textbooks, lots of jokes around the table. Not that we want to laugh about this, but we have many textbooks that are old enough to legally drink, and then I believe we have some textbooks that someone was saying we don't want to get them to the point where they're old enough to collect Social Security. But there are certainly texts that are significantly out of date at the high school level. And then technology. I mean, we talk about this all the time. We're now assessing students as of this year in grades 4, 7, and 8 online for the next generation MCAS. And it's not just about putting a student in front of a device to be assessed at the time of an assessment. If a student isn't a native user, and again, it's hard to, people say, well, are you kidding me? How are students not native users? They're on their devices all the time. But students are not on devices with keypads and touchpads and screens to be assessed. So if we're putting students in front of a device just to assess them, we're assessing their technology readiness. We're not assessing the mathematics or the ELA or the science content that is supposedly being assessed in the assessment. So we have a significant need for technology devices. We've done pretty well with our network infrastructure and Wi-Fi access and broadband access. We have pretty good data pipes coming in. But it's the devices now that we need to make some significant investments with. So I think we're at a turning point. We are unfortunately in a pattern, as you know, each of these past few years of needing to make cuts to make the budget, I don't want to use the term affordable, because I know even the numbers that we've delivered to the towns in past years have been larger than affordable. But we haven't been able to talk about strategic investments and additions because we've been in this pattern. So we need to be proactive in as it's been said many times. This has to be a two-pronged approach. This is not the state is not going to find billions of dollars to solve this problem quickly. So we need to be proactive, and there's a Senate Bill SD 1905 that starts to put some pressure to actually put some of the thinking from the Foundation Budget Review Commission not just put dollars into it, because again, we're not gonna see those dollars unless there's a change in the formula. So we need to be proactive with the state in pressuring and pushing to make sure that some meaningful change comes out of these discussions. But we also need to have some local decisions and discussions and decisions, because we have to think outside the box. We have a regional agreement that provides the state assessment method. A regional agreement allows us to have an alternative funding arrangement, and it gives us another option. It does not bind any of the 3 towns to use that year in, year out. Anytime that's used, it has to be approved by all 3 towns, but it gives us another option. Without having that other option, literally, there's nothing that we as a district can do to control the way we assess the budget. So when Newbury sees a swing down below what last year's was, and as of this point in time, over $550,000 increase for the town of Rowley, there's no way to look at a different agreement unless we have that documented in a regional agreement. So these are really, it's really a, it has to be a 2-pronged approach, locally and at the state. And I think we're at a crisis point here. I know we've had the winners and losers, if you will, over the years, but the losers have gotten some really big bills that I don't believe we saw the likes of those kind of swings in previous years. So if this continues, I think we're getting to a point where we're going to start dismantling services that are provided to the students. So that is.
Brian, one of the things I wanted to bring up, and that's out of your control, obviously, and we talked about it at that meeting with the state reps, and they did a good job they had an understanding of our issues and our problems. The House and Senate as a whole don't seem to, because of the lack of additional dollars. A senator or a representative that represents a city area isn't gonna give up some of their money to give us more.
Yep.
But from Raleigh's point of view, and I think parents at home need to understand, and citizens need to understand it, and I put together a little homework before I came tonight, that, in FY12, which is about 7 years ago, our assessment to Triton was $7,463,000. If the proposed budget goes through for 18, our proposed assessment's going to be $9,655,000. That's just in seven years. Last year alone, and this year, our assessment with the 2 years combined is going to be almost $1 million in 2 years. I mean, what people need to understand is we're going broke. We are either going to have to start laying off and reducing town services to pay for the school budget, or we're going to go bankrupt. We absolutely, and it's not going to change quickly, but we absolutely cannot afford $500,000 a year increase in the school budget when, under the law, we're only allowed to increase our taxes by 2.5% plus new growth. Some years there's lots of new growth, some years there's not much. But I look at these figures and I'm terrified as to where we're going. I mean, we want to support the schools. Obviously, the school committee, the figures you present here is very, it's understandable, understanding where you are. And I don't know how we can change the formula, but Rowley is going to go broke. I mean, what we're doing now is, and almost for the last 7 years, is every single year to fund Triton, we're funding it out of free cash. But when you fund operating budgets out of free cash, you're taking X amount of extra money from a one-time increase for that year, but then you have to make that up, plus the next year you're taking more money.
Kicking the can down the road.
So we're falling further and further behind, and I don't know where we're going to go. A number of years ago, when we had the override for Triton, we passed an override of somewhere around $400,000, and probably 6-7 years ago now, maybe even longer. We fought hard for it, and at that time we said probably to fund the school budget the way things were going, every 5 or 6 years we need an override. Well, we're not going to get that, and particularly now. And at this time, we've got a police station we're paying for $12 million. We hope to fund somewhere $30+ million for the desperately needed project at the Pine Grove School, and yet we're going to have to come up with another $500,000. I mean, it's not your fault. I understand the formula. The formula is dictating it, but I don't know how we get people to make the State House realize that, you know, it's fine that they're solving their problem by shifting it onto us, but, you know, we sit here as a board, and if when the town administrators sit and try to figure out the budget and what we can do, I mean, we're gonna be we're literally in another year or two, we're gonna be laying people off and/or just declare bankruptcy and whatever, and the tax rates here are going up, going out of sight. I don't know, I don't have an answer, and I'm not expecting
Yeah,
you
no,
have an
it's-
answer, you understand the problem,
Yeah.
but I want people at home to understand that, you know, we're in a catch-22 here,
Yeah.
and we're running out of rope. I mean, we're getting down, we're hanging just above the swirling ocean, and we're about to fall in, and, you know, all right, maybe we'll be able to fund it this year, but if it keeps going the way it is, we get another $500,000 increase for next year, you know, give or take. I don't know what we're gonna do. And as a selectman, and many of us have been here for a long time, you know, we've been fighting this problem for a long time, but it's just discouraging to see these kinds of figures. And, because right now, we're facing other issues within the town. I mean, we need a fire station, we need a police station, we need the Pine Grove Schools 25 years without anything being done with it. So we desperately need that project. So we're asking the taxpayers to come up with, you know, that 30+ million to fund that, as well as we're stripping, we're conservative here, we try not to spend any more than we have to, but whatever savings we're making on the town side, we're turning over to the school. And it's very frustrating for our employees as well as the board here to know that every nickel we save over here, we have to turn over to the school. And we're not trying to be negative to the school, we understand.
No, I get it, yeah.
We have that obligation, and most of us here our kids went through Triton, so, you know, we have an obligation to make sure the next generation's children go through, but it's just so frustrating, and, you know, it's like hitting our heads against the wall, and I just wanna make a note that, you know, that's where we stand. I mean, we have to pay what we have to pay, and somehow we will, but, you know, we're heading for bankruptcy, and/or major layoffs or budget reductions on the town side just to fund this, and you showed in your figures that, you know, the town's assessments are up 81% in the charts you showed. I mean, that's unbelievable how fast those have gone up.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think it speaks to the two-pronged approach that's needed. We can fix through the regional agreement how we apportion those costs, but if in 1.1 million in new increases, we're getting 65,000 new dollars from the state for next year.
But even if we took that 1.1 million, divided it up evenly 3 ways, that gives Triton, say, $300,000. Well, that's almost all of our new income.
Exactly.
So
So that's what I'm saying.
that leaves us nothing to
Right.
put into the fire department, the police department, the highway department.
So that's what I'm saying, if Chapter 70 was increasing by 2.5%,
Yeah,
we'd be getting a few $100,000 more.
yeah. Yeah,
And then there wouldn't be that amount.
we're eating the inflation as well as we're eating everything at
Getting to
our
a
level.
difference of almost 82%.
82%, so it's just so frustrating to sit here as a board, and we contemplate every penny we spend,
Absolutely.
and anything we save, it's not like we can say to the chief of police, well, if you save a nickel here, you can spend it over there. No, we're gonna take it and we're gonna give it to the school.
Right.
And that's part of what's happening with the butting heads with the school versus the town, and it's getting worse. It isn't getting, not because we want it that way, but that's reality is in terms of funding. It's all about funding.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you do educationally, I don't think we're gonna sit here and say you need to hire 2 more technology teachers or special education to any of that. That's your problem. Our problem is to come up with the money to fund it. We're just about at the end of our rope, so I'll keep quiet with that.
Norissa?
I just wanted to, I know we've gone through the numbers again, but I just wanted to put them back out there. If we level funded the budget from last year, Newbury's numbers would have gone down $325,000, Raleigh's would have gone up $125,000, and Salisbury's would go up $200,000. Raleigh's number in the figure in the letter that we got was $200,000. If you look at that $125,000 that's getting kind of shuffled out between the Newbury, Raleigh, and Salisbury buckets out of Raleigh's bucket, so to speak, the difference between $125,000 that's essentially just getting shuffled here, and the $200,000 is only $75,000.
Where's the 200,000? Oh,
From the letter.
what we
It's
offer.
One
the
ninety.
half of the new revenue plus the 2.5 levy. So that's $75,000, assuming that Rowley holds about a third of the enrollment, means that the total budget could only go up about $225,000. So $225,000 with that set of numbers would go towards the school budget, and your $125,000 is going toward that minimum local contribution kind of shuffling. If we can fix that issue, then we can hopefully still make it fair, but even out the way these swings are happening, and more of that can go towards the school budget, which will effectively stabilize the schools. And when you stabilize the schools, one of the things that's happening right now is we're trying to back patchwork. There wasn't enough money to bring in a science curriculum earlier. We didn't have the curriculum coordinators because they've been cut. Because of that, we dropped a lot of science out of the curriculum. All of a sudden, the scores are going down. As the scores going down, now we're trying to bring in a big curriculum. We're then trying to bring in the staff to implement that curriculum. If we can keep things on a much more even keel, then the budget also stays on a much more even keel. So if we can work, and this is in the town's power, to be able to work on a new calculation for the regional agreement, it goes a long way both in kind of the upfront immediate effects and also the long-term effects on what happens with the budgets.
It does.
Yeah, no, it's right. No, I understand that, but just take healthcare costs alone. In other words, Brian showed us the way healthcare is going up 8.2%. Well, our healthcare for our town employees is going up 8.2%. Now, we're gonna fund yours. We're gonna fund ours by reducing other services within the town budget. I think that's where it comes in about how you reduce, do you not reduce? Because to fund our portion of, I'm just talking about strictly healthcare now, if ours is 8.2% also, we've got to find somewhere in our half of the money. So if you're taking all of our new growth, that leaves us nothing for our 8.2%. So now we gotta find other places in our budget where we level fund services, level fund expense budgets just about every single year since I've been a selectman. Because the money has to go to either the schools or somewhere else. So I mean, this is, and I'm not, like, once again, I'm not trying to pit us against the schools, but it gives you an indication of what we're trying to deal with and what our town budget people are trying to deal with is we have to find, we fund yours because we're required by state law to fund the school budget at whatever we get assessed. We find our money by cutting back somewhere. You know, next year, we're gonna be looking at hiring 2 firemen. We probably aren't gonna be able to do it. So fire coverage is gonna be, you know, we're relying on strictly call guys, and when nobody shows up for a fire or a bad accident, well, you know, whose fault is that? You know, we'll get blamed, but it's a matter of what services do we have and what services do we cut. And it's, once again, it's not the school, but it's just so frustrating that we can't get anybody outside of our 3 towns to understand what we're being put through.
I agree.
And it's just incredibly difficult, and it's just, you know, you waste. With budget time comes, we sit here and have sleepless nights trying to figure out how are we gonna fund this and how are we gonna fund that. It's impossible.
I agree. And the schools getting cut as well. I mean, Brian showed you that chart of how everything's dialing back on basically, I'll call it the regular education side.
Yeah, no, it's.
So I totally understand where you're coming from. Moving forward though, if we can get some movement on the state side, continue to weigh in, try to get additional attention put forward on this, especially now that the Foundation Budget Review Commission has come out with their report. It's a thick report. I can give you 2 if you want it. They are more aware of this situation than they have been in the last 24 years, I would even say. So it needs momentum there, but we can also have some local change.
Well, even if we change the formula, that's not gonna take effect for 2 more years.
But
I mean, it's a little light at the end of the tunnel, but even that light doesn't solve our problem, because we're still, like you say, we only have 75,000 over what we wanna give the schools, but that's 75,000 out of what we haven't been able to do, so. I mean, and it's 2 years down the road. If we get hit with next year's budget, you know, if you go up, whatever the percentage is gonna be, a couple of 3%, and we go up another $400,000 or $500,000, based on student population. We're literally running out of money. You know, come the end of the budget process, I'm not sure what we're gonna have left in free cash, and we try to scrimp it. But, like I say, in talking about it is, you know, every year we take free cash to put into the operating budget, next year you're taking that plus the next allotment out of it, so it's, if we ran a household this way, we would be broke, we'd be on Medicaid and getting welfare payments. I mean, it's just, and that's where we're headed. And we're heading there faster than the other towns because of the way that particular formula goes. When you take Salisbury, our increase this year is 456,000. If, on the proposed budget, Salisbury's is 500 and something thousand. Well, Salisbury has 3 or probably 4 times the tax base that Raleigh has. I mean, it's a big town up there, they got all the beach property, they got a lot of business parks and everything else. They got at least twice, if not 3 times, the tax base that we have, so they got a little more room. They're losing, but they're losing slower than we are. And I don't know what Neil Harrington is, he was at the meeting the other night when we were there, I don't know what he's coming up with or what he'll be saying, but, I mean, Salisbury, when we're very close to what Salisbury is getting assessed, the 2 towns are very much different in terms of population and tax base, so, you know, it's frustrating, so.
The figures that I discussed last year with Neil Harrington, their 2.5 plus new growth was almost double ours.
Okay. I wanna say, I think their equalized valuation is close to 40 and yours is 29. So I think it's that far off, although I could be wrong, so check the numbers again.
Okay.
Anybody else have a comment, a question, or Mr. Forget? Appreciate you coming.
Do you want to discuss the school?
And, Bernie?
Yes, I guess Marissa's point is well taken about the formula between the 3 towns. But and as I kind of tried to communicate with Brian, he's been very responsive in terms of applying. It's almost like too late now in the end of February to kind of make the kind of changes that are needed in order to kind of make everybody's life easier. This is the second cycle I paid a lot of attention to, as opposed to, for many years, I just didn't pay any attention to it. I just wrote a check. It seems to me the budget process has to start in September. It has to start with estimations and with knowing what the situation is, because all those parameters are basically known now. We know that the best case scenario would be for this year's growth to be matched next year. And that should actually go in as the kind of the budget figure that all the schools need to kind of work towards, rather than the notion of level funding. Because level funding means, you know, almost 100 or 95% of whatever has already been spent is going to be spent again. Well, you're not going to get out of a budget crisis that way. You've got to kind of go back and not assume level funding, but almost kind of do a zero-based budgeting, which is what I wrote to Brian about earlier. But that isn't easy, and I realize it's really, really hard, but it does require, as Brian at the end of his presentation said, we're rethinking all of our pedagogical delivery systems, etc. Well, yeah, the numbers suggest we've got to be really thinking very, very hard about those, because the model that exists can't continue to exist because we can't pay for it. Because if we've got all these cost factors, the transportation and the medical insurance, which are kind of like independent factors which we have very little control over, you either have to decide you're going to dramatically shift what the school system is going to pay. That's a negotiation, that's under contract. But that's what's actually is gonna have to happen. Not that that's specific, but that kind of, start from scratch kind of position, thinking has to occur. Because you can't, I mean, you guys have this terrible problem, of essentially using up every cent in the savings account, and then there's gonna be nothing left. So I don't think it's an easy problem to solve, but there's no way that it can be solved if we start the budget process in January. And I know there's probably pre-work that Brian and other people do in the school district, but the principals of the school have to be kind of essentially confronted with, okay, well, you go through the exercise. What if your budget is cut by 10% next year? How are you going to address that? What are you going to do? Because that's the reality coming down the road. Because otherwise, we're in a bind. The state is going to make us pay whatever the school says, and if what the school decides it's going to say is based upon a very compressed schedule with very little kind of dramatic rethinking, then we're in a bind. We're not going to get out. It's a catch-22 proposition, and we're never going to get out of it.
But the problem, Bernie, is, and it's like those of us that have had kids get married. You want to reduce the cost of the wedding, you need to reduce the number of guests that you invite to the wedding. Well, here is, if we want to...
Tell them to elope.
If,
I mean, at a certain point, you...
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm getting to, Bernie, is that if we want to drastically cut the school budget, we're talking about 80% of the budget is teachers, 80 give or take. So we're going to go from 20 students in a class to 35 to 40 students in a class. When we do that, you might as well, if people are going to move out of town, you're never going to sell your house. You know, there's no, the drastic reductions in the budget to save us $500,000 means they've got to reduce their budget by say $2 million, depending on how the formula works out. I mean, that's talking about 35 kids in the classroom. You've got to educate the special needs kids, the special education kids. So you don't get any savings there. It's the numbers of regular kids in the classroom that are going to suffer. I mean, there's no places. That's why I'm saying with the budget, you've got certain obligations that the state says you have to do this. But the state then says, Rowley, you have to pay for it. So that's, you know, I think we're expressing frustration here, and none of us have an answer for it. I mean, to go back and zero-base the budget and work forward, you're still going to come to the same place by increasing class sizes and or cutting out buses. But I think we have to bus the kids because our regional school system, we get some reimbursement for that. But we got all these mandates, health care coverage. I mean, you know, yeah, it'd be nice if we didn't pay health care coverage for anybody, at the town the and or the school. But the reality is, it's contractually there on both sides. We're stuck with it. So I mean, it's, you know, we're talking past each other in terms of what it's going to take to solve this problem, and nobody, we all listen to each other and understand the problem. But at the state level, where the problem needs to be solved, is like at the meeting we had last week there, when I think it might have been Bruce Tarr or the Ives woman basically said that you know, where the state's paying for kids to be educated based on the numbers of students, not on what the cost is to educate them. So they're still talking about, okay, how many 100 kids you got? Meanwhile, yeah, well, I got 100 kids, but now it's costing us 3 times as much to educate them. But the state doesn't even, they don't care about that. They're just worried about how many students you get. And when they come to increase the school budget, they'll give us $20 a student more or something, which is, you know, you're wasting our time. You know, it's nice, we'll take whatever we can get, but you're wasting our time in terms of solving the problems that we have. And, you know, regional districts are even in worse shape because the way the whole thing is set up. I mean, we can go to town meeting and say, and vote the budget down. That doesn't mean we're not going to pay it, because ultimately it's going to come back. We have to vote it down again, or it goes into effect, and ultimately the state, if you vote it down enough times, the state comes in and says, no, you have to pay. This is what you have to pay. So I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place, and it's, you know, I think my purpose in making my spiel tonight was to let parents and citizens at home, I hope, that are watching this meeting, understand that, you know, and I think Brian did a great job of going through the figures and explaining what everything is. But this is the dilemma we're all in. So when you have to increase taxes, you know, you wanna blame us, you wanna blame the schools, understand that most of this is well beyond any of our control. We're just pawns in this big game of, come up with more money.
I'd like to add too that, when you look at a regional district versus a municipality, the structure is very, very different.
Mhm.
But the municipalities, even when you have the mayor chairing your school committee, are facing very, very similar challenges.
Right. No, I would acknowledge that. I think that's, the same thing's occurring in the health field, where the existing delivery model isn't working. And expectations have to change.
Well, it's gonna take bankruptcy, you know, that's why I say when you talk about bankruptcy, that's what, it's gonna take an earthquake, literally, to wake people up. Whether we have a bankruptcy or some other town or whatever, that's what's gonna happen ultimately, because at some point, we physically will not have the money to keep funding at this rate of increase. It's not the school's fault. I mean, if they're keeping up with inflation more or less, we're trying to keep up with inflation, but yet the state doesn't, so we pick up their portion. We get, you know, less state aid because we're dropping students. I mean, there's more excuses why they don't have money to help anybody out, but they put the mandates on you to make sure that you do all this stuff. And it's just, I just want people to know from the selectmen's perspective and Brian made this will be, you know, a nice presentation. I've seen it a couple of times. Joe's probably seen it 2 or 3 times. I mean, it's very logical, it's all right there, but what none of us have is an answer how we solve this. And it's just, you know, the most we can do is let the citizens know and let them get up in arms and you know, like I say, the other night we had Bruce Tarr, we had all the, you know, five or six of the state reps and senators at that meeting, which was great, and they were very sympathetic. But sympathy doesn't get us any money.
Yep.
And they're hitting their heads against the wall as well as we are. And you know, and these, you know, like Narissa talks about the, you know, and you talked about this, you know, the study, how the Chapter 70 should work. That takes 10 years. You know, they all look at it and read it and mull about it, and by the time they get to do anything, it's too late. The problems have changed. You know, they're correcting problems that are 10 years old, and we're right behind the 8 ball again. That's happened every time they've done the Chapter 70. How are we going to distribute it? By the time they get around to doing it, it's already an antique before they even get to pass it. And then to get money out of one school, one person to give up money to give to somebody else to even things out is very difficult. It's, you know, and that's one of the things I said with, you know, what changing the formula within the district here. I mean, you got Newbury, who's getting, last 2 years have gotten money back, and you think those citizens are gonna turn around next year and say, oh yeah, we wanna help Raleigh and Salisbury, so we'll increase our assessments by $200,000 or $300,000 to help that. Is that gonna happen? I hope it does, but I'm not holding out a lot of hope.
They're willing to come to the working group, which is what we heard.
No, I know that, I understand that, but the citizens, when you go to the polls, and you're telling Joe Q citizen that he's voting to increase his taxes, I'm not sure that they're gonna be willing to do that, so, you know, it's a matter of,
I think to Bruce's point, we've got everyone to agree to come to the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Which is a first, I don't wanna overlook
No.
that.
No, we need to look at it, and we need to go forward with it and work on it, but I mean, it's still, like I say, it's 2 years away. You know, if it all works out, and we come to an agreement, the earliest we're gonna vote on it is next year's town meeting, which means it won't really go into effect until the year after that, in terms of the budget, so we've got 2 more years of if it keeps going the way it's gone the last 2 years, that, you know, we're crawling into a hole here.
I agree, but let's get it done instead of.
Oh, no, I agree, we need to move forward. I'm not being in opposition to it. I'd be glad to, you know, I think I would encourage it, and as Brian knows, over the years, I've worked on the school budgets, and, you know, we've been an active group whenever we've done anything with the Triton agreement and stuff, so I'm more than cooperative and wanna help out, but you know, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, that's where, no matter what we do, it's beyond our, we can do some tweaking, but to come up with a real solution is beyond, well beyond us at this point, so.
I'd like to make one final point. I'll let you make a comment, but I know that you specifically made the point about the special ed and the healthcare costs are two of the main drivers of the budget increase. But I'd like to highlight that in not throw stones at the special ed budget, but the average cost per child is about $12,000 in the budget. If you to educate roughly.
I'd have to go back and do the math, but.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Well, it was around that in the year past. But if you take that and you have a special ed student, the cost for one child could come as high as $300,000 just to cover the services for that one child for 1 year.
365,000 was actually freed up in the budget for next year for a student who moved out of one of our member towns.
That's the disparity, highlights the disparity, not throwing stones at the special ed, but that's what we're asked to cover for costs.
And just one quick one, Joe, is, you know, we're talking with Triton here. The last 2 years, our cost for Whittier and, we're almost at $1 million in the last 2 years for Triton. We're probably between Whittier and Essex Aggie, we're probably talking $1.3 million, $1.4 million that's increased. So, I mean, we're not getting hit just with Triton's educational costs, we're getting hit with two other school systems, and it seems like more and more kids are going. Years past, there was very few kids went to Whittier from Raleigh, and very few went to Essex Aggie. For whatever reason, that those numbers have jumped, and those costs are $18,000, $20,000 a child.
Yep.
Compared to what we spend for Triton students. So, I mean, we add all these things up, it just adds the burden. Isn't just at Triton, it's happening throughout. And we have obviously, that's an assessment that we just pay because we don't have any real say in that either, so.
Larry?
Yes. First off, let me say that I agree we should continue with the reassessment formula, but that's not the problem. That only prolongs the problem. And to think that that's a solution is going down in the Titanic with all your jewels on. The two major problems are special ed, and linked to that is the medical. Those are the two areas that you have control. If you don't want to control those, then you control the administrative salaries. I'd much rather tackle the medical expenses, special ed expenses. Medical expenses, again, maybe we can't offer everything. You know, I'd much rather throw off the jewels and hopefully not drown than wear everything and say, we've got the greatest system in the world, by the way, we're going bankrupt next week. There are cost savings that could be done. Retiree dental insurance. Most towns don't even offer dental insurance for the regular employees, much less retirees. There are other savings that, at least when I looked at, and granted I'm not an educator, so I'm not sure, but I've looked at some of the numbers. We've got 9 guidance counselors at one school. Pine Grove, with about the same enrollment, only has 6. Why do we need an extra 3 at, I think it's Newbury? Doesn't make sense. Some of the other things on the expenses, maybe on the textbooks, I thought we're all going digital. We don't need textbooks, okay? Or if you want to upgrade textbooks, maybe you don't put in the 200,000 for the textbooks. You only put in 100,000. We're not operating smart. Then we're just gonna go under. Unless we start looking at the medical and secondarily the special ed. Granted, you may not be able to do much with special ed.
Basically, you can't do anything because it's mandated by the state. Kids that have IEP, we have to provide the services.
To provide the services, obviously there's,
You know, there's some, you can nickel, a lot of these things, Larry, you can, like, we could cut Brian's salary in half. That isn't gonna solve our problem. We could lay off,
No, but
we
we'll
could lay
say,
off five guidance counselors,
if
and then hire
Brian
two
wants
cops
to
who
keep
run
the
we
medical,
got the problem in the schools. I mean, it's-
insurance that he has, then the only alternative is to cut his salary in half. That's a decision that, you know, he can make, type of a thing. I'd much rather, like, Bernie said, you come up with, in September, October, every town looks at the numbers and says, okay, Raleigh, we can afford $9 million, okay? However, Triton wants to portion that out, it's up to them. Same as any other department, you know, the department says, I need X number of dollars, you know. They don't say, hey, I'm gonna buy 3 rolls of toilet paper rather than 2 and use the extra money for something else.
you know,
You've got, we have to, and I use it as a collective thing, look at the things that are the drivers, and it's medical and special ed. May not be able to do too much at special ed. I don't think we really looked at it that much.
Well, the problem, Larry, is we can sit there in September and say we're only gonna give them $5 million. But when they come up with a budget, it doesn't matter what we said, it's whatever they come up with a budget that we get assessed. And if you think that we can cut all the teachers, Blue Cross Blue Shield by 50%, teachers are gonna bail out faster than you can, count nickels. And we're not gonna hire any replacements. I mean,
Well, that's all right, because we're going bankrupt anyway.
The system
If
is what
we-
the system is, and.
If we agree to pay them everything, we're gonna go bankrupt anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're headed, we all understand that with the current system can't exist, but, you know, I wish any one of us, I'm sure Brian would love to sit here and say, yep, I got the answer. And of course, we would too, but we don't. And the answer is beyond our control because we have all these mandates and requirements and union contracts. And I mean, these are all things that we labor under, that we start off behind the 8 ball before we even talk about how many kids in the classroom.
I would just say, if I can,
Yeah, go
so, special ed, you said we haven't looked at it, we look at that all the time. I mean, we review in unbelievable detail the services we have to provide. So I would say, is there cost savings there? I don't believe there is. We'll look at it.
Right.
You know, to Bernie's
Yeah.
point, the zero-based budgeting that we can do on supplies and materials, you know, classroom supplies and materials is at the same level it was 12 years ago. So, you know, all the supplies we've leveled. The piece that, there are certainly some savings with healthcare, absolutely. If we're at a 70-30 split, comparable with other school districts in the area, we're the same 70-30. There's a couple 65-35s. So say we got to 60-40, there's savings there, hundreds of thousands. So you go backwards, and then we keep increasing. So if Chapter 70 isn't keeping up with an 8.5%, a 10%, 6%, an 8% increase in the premiums year over year, we can't by statute, same for you, you can't go below 50-50 split. You have to provide at least a 50% of the cost of healthcare as a public entity. So there's 30% savings there? Yes, absolutely factually true. But even if we chopped it all at once, you're resetting the clock, and then it's just gonna keep increasing from there, which
valid point, you know, we can go back, but as to Dave's point, we will not be competitive and we will not be attracting teachers, period.
I mean, we see it already on the town side. I mean, on the town side, we provide 50 to 48% healthcare. Most every town around does either 70-30, 75-25, a couple of 60-40. So already, we have a hard time hiring, particularly technical employees or police officers, for instance.
Well, then you
that
have
they
to
can
be
go
creative
anywhere.
somewhere else.
How?
Otherwise,
If you wanna save on healthcare, you
all
gotta
you're
pay them
doing
an
is
extra
just throwing up your
$15,000 a
hands
year.
and
No,
saying,
right.
you know, we can't do anything, within 3 years, Rowley will be a
Yeah.
suburb of Ipswich or something like that.
Yeah, if we go into bankruptcy, that's what's gonna happen. State's gonna come in and they'll send someone down to tell us how much money they're gonna make us raise our taxes to pay for what we're in it anyway. You know, there's no getting out. If we declare bankruptcy, all that means is the state comes in and they'll take away everything, and they're still gonna tell us how much we're gonna pay in taxes to fund everything we're funding now, basically. I mean, it's just, no, I agree. I mean, it's just, it's very difficult, and we've been talking about this for as long as I've been a selectman, and it's just, right now, it's being exasperated. I mean, there were years when Rowley made out well. We didn't pay a big increase to Triton. And in Salisbury, we've all been in the barrel at one time or another. But right now, I think we are, Brian is right, that we're reaching the breaking point that costs have gotten to the point where, and the state, when you look at state aid, is we're making less now than we were in 2002. That's an incredible figure. It's absolutely, it's absolutely incredible. We're getting less state aid now for the schools, and I think on the town side, and Debbie would know more than I do, I'll bet on the town side, we're in the same position. Our state aid is, over the years, has become less and less and less. So we're making up the schools' money, we're making up the town's cherry sheet figures. You know, it's very easy for the state, and even now the federal government's talking about, you know, all kinds of, you're gonna make the military the biggest and fastest in the world. Well, who's gonna pay for that? You're gonna pay, I'm gonna pay, and the school system's gonna pay. Because anything they give us now for federal programs is dried up. So we either take the program away, or we pay for it. And it's a vicious circle, and the state does the same thing. Every year we talk about the state budget. Well, you know, the legislature just gave themselves a huge raise, and yet they're gonna not give us any more Chapter 70 money or any more cherry sheet money, or a very small pittance to. And once again, that raise doesn't solve the problem, but it's indicative of what we're facing here, that somehow it'd be nice if we could magically cut everybody's budget in half and start out again. But that isn't reality. I wish I had an answer. Brian wishes he had an answer. Joe wishes he had an answer, but we just don't. We'll muckle through, do the best we can, and try to make some changes, and, you know, but that's about where we stand. If someone has some good ideas beyond that, believe me, we're more than happy to listen, but, you know, a lot of these things are a nickel and diamond around the edges that, you know, we're talking, we need literally millions of dollars of cuts. And, you know, and we're taxing the taxpayers more than ever, you know, just here in Rowley, or all three towns. All three towns have got police, fire stations, or whatever. We got the water treatment plant, we got a school building here, but there's gonna be expensive. And if the taxpayers decide they don't wanna fund that, then, you know, we're gonna pay all those costs when the roof leaks and the heat breaks down, we gotta fix it. So we pay 100% instead of the 50. I mean, but these are issues that we as a board have to deal with, and the school committee people have to deal with, and the superintendent has to deal with the reality of what we can get, and how we divvy up that pot. And, you know, it's just so frustrating, and you're experiencing the frustration just like we do. And, you know, we're all of us here, we're all retired. You know, our days of going out and working overtime to make up. And a lot of the parents, you know, you talk about the schools, a lot of your parents, you got parents with, you know, 2 kids making $50,000 a year, they're scraping to get by. you know, $40,000-$50,000 a year now there was just an article in the paper the other day about, you know, a single mother making $40-something thousand and she's scraping, literally scraping. So I mean, it isn't just the old people, it's the people working two jobs, overtime, and everything else, and how much are they gonna wanna raise their taxes, you know, I mean, they can't afford to do it either. So, you know, it's gonna be a tough sell, I think, just to get parents to go out and vote for that school. They want to, but can they afford it?
We've got to cut off
Yeah.
the discussion because we've got more items on the agenda and we have to get on with work. Thank you, Brian,
Thank you
for
for the
coming
effort.
in and making your presentation.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Go back to new business, number 2. We have the Pine Grove School project update. We have a feasibility study agreement revision. Painting Company has requested that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Mass School Building Association feasibility study agreement budget revision request number 1. This increases the original feasibility study agreement from $745,000 to $800,000. Chairman Perry needs to sign 3 original documents. Attached is the MSBA spreadsheet showing the breakout. Basically, what it amounts to is, we originally, last spring, we voted for an $800,000 override, and the feasibility study agreement that we presented to the MSBA, we only asked the Pink, which is our owner's project management company, put in for $745,000. Because we've added on a construction management company and have other costs associated with the Pine Grove feasibility study agreement, we have to increase it to the full $800,000. It doesn't mean that we're spending all of the $800,000, but we do have to increase it to, so that they have the opportunity, if the needs arise, to have the $800,000 available. Any questions?
I'll give you a motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to sign the request for to increase the FSA feasibility study agreement from $745,000 to $800,000 to present that paperwork to the MSBA. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I'll sign those 3. After.
Sure, just to let you know, we will have those, because the chair and I have to sign those as well, the school
Right.
committee, so those will be on for the 8th of October. So not the hearing this week, but a week from Wednesday. We'll
8th of
sign
March.
those.
Oh, okay.
Did I say October?
Yes.
October.
Just getting ahead of myself a little bit.
Give
Wow.
yourself enough time.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Larry. March.
I will be
Next week.
there Wednesday night, so
We'll hand
I
them.
might have the documents for you then.
Great.
Okay. So there is a spreadsheet included to show you the costs for the OPM, for the architect, and for the site work, and for other reimbursable, and how it adds up to the $800,000. Next on the agenda is the community engagement meeting. The Pine Grove School Building Committee has tentatively changed the date of the community engagement meeting from March 9th to March 30th. The meeting has been pushed out so that the committee can finalize the project budget and the scope of the work. We've been asked by the architect in the OPM, and I believe the construction management company to push that date out so that they can get the figures so that we can take a look at the renovations and come up with a figure that we can present to the community on the 30th of March. So that date has been changed. It's not March 9th, it will be March 30th at the Pine Grove School All-Purpose Room. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the project scope and budget. The Pine Grove School Building Committee was provided with a list of value engineering options by the architect, Doran Whittier, at the last meeting. The committee voted to include option number 7, kitchen equipment, as part of the overall project. The committee will be discussing the other options at their next meeting. The committee also reviewed the site plan work. A copy of the proposed site plan is attached. There was a discussion at the last committee meeting about the town's ability to borrow in excess of its debt capacity. Treasurer Karen Summit has confirmed with the town's financial advisors that the Pine Grove School Building project does not apply because school projects authorized under the MSBA statute, General Laws, Chapter 70B, are outside of the debt limit. Also, Treasurer Karen Summit has prepared a spreadsheet, the last attachment in the package, of hypothetical scenarios showing various amounts of the project costs and what their impact is to the tax rate. Karen,
Yes.
would you like to?
So basically, what I did is I took a look at the incremental increase to the tax rate in $1 million increments. And basically, I'm looking at the net costs, net of the MSBA reimbursement.
Right.
So while we have to authorize the entire cost, we expect to be reimbursed approximately 47.8%.
I think it's 48.7.
48.7.
It's 48.47 currently. I
Okay.
think the estimate is we'll gain another percentage point in
Right.
benefits.
Of the building
Right.
costs, not the site work, though, right?
That's
There are
correct.
certain non-reimbursable
Some of
costs.
the
Exactly, but this is
8%.
very simplistic, just
Right.
running some numbers. So if you look, basically, as you increase each $1 million, your tax, impact on the tax rate goes up 5 to 7 cents. So, I'm using an average home value of $440,000, and the spreadsheet shows you the additional taxes based on that amount for those project costs. And that's assuming, we're borrowing in 25 years at about 5%. So basically, my objective in doing this was for the selectmen to look at some of the things that the committee is thinking about. Do we include this? Do we not include this? How much of a priority, for example, site work? There are members of the committee that think the site work is crucial to the project. And this was just a chance for the committee members and the Board of Selectmen to say, okay, well, if this increases the project by, $2 million, $2.5 million, what is that impact on the tax rate going to be? So it's basically just a tool for evaluating some of these options that may or may not be included in the total cost of the project.
Sonia, just looking around the room that, and looking at the individuals that are here tonight, we almost have a quorum.
The building committee?
We have 15 members and we have 7 people.
When,
Dave?
when are we anticipating getting, a cost, Joe, of what the estimation is on the, you know what I mean? In other words, we're still throwing numbers around.
Right.
Obviously, pretty soon we've gotta have a number for the warrant.
Right.
Is that coming up?
We,
You think
the
so?
committee agreed, correct me if I'm wrong, that we agreed that we would have a a dollar figure that would be, that we could submit for the warrant to the Board of Selectmen, by either the 15th or the 30th. I thought it was the 30th of March. Am I wrong?
Isn't there some
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
a
maybe.
cost submission that we're waiting on, that's coming in around the middle of March?
I believe they're targeting the 16th, the meeting of the,
Six-
so we're meeting this
We
Thursday,
are
the
meeting the
2nd,
second, we are
16th,
meeting the
I
16th.
believe the 16th is the target, is it 3011, the form 3011?
Right.
Which details total project cost, and then the figure that Karen's saying, there's an effective reimbursement rate, so it's not, the project was 38, it's not exactly, if it's 50%, it's not an automatic 19 that you'd be assessed, and there are some non-reimbursables.
Right.
But my understanding is that between Doran Whittier, the construction manager, and the OPMs, they were hoping to wrap their heads around that 3011 by this meeting on the 16th.
On the 16th.
To give you a figure for the warrant by mid-March, and then we would have that for the community meeting on the 30th.
On the 30th. I think you're right.
But from what they've been saying, I think we're talking about, if the project includes the site work and everything we've talked about, I think we're talking about a $20 million cost to the town, to the taxpayer. And based on Karen's chart, that would be $572 in additional taxes on your average home. If you couple that, which I think you should, we've taken into consideration the $350 in additional costs that will be created by the public safety buildings, so construction of the we're talking about almost $1,000 increase on your average taxpayer, seems to me. And I don't recognize the numbers are gonna vary a little, they may go down, they may go up, but that's the kind of increase we're talking about.
That's the kind of increase we're talking about.
So that's about a 15% in everybody's real estate taxes.
Well,
Yeah, whatever works out.
whatever it works out to, and
Right, it depends on,
yeah,
No, it's gonna be
it's based on
expensive.
an average home value of $440,000, so you can judge whether you're gonna end up paying more or less than that. But, we haven't talked about this, but, the committee talked, quite a bit about putting the, site work on a separate warrant article.
Right.
And I am personally in favor of that, because I think if we take an all or nothing approach by lumping everything together, we may end up with nothing. So I would like to see, two warrant articles, one with the site work, done separately, so, taxpayers, the voters of Raleigh can decide whether that's something they wanna go with, as well as the building construction.
I think our thinking, well, some of the board members' thinking on that was that if the more overrides you put on the ballot, that you have less of a chance of getting an override passed. I know
Well,
that last spring we had two major, in my estimation, we had major override for the police fire station for almost $12 million. And we had the feasibility study on for an override for $800,000, and we did get both of them passed.
Mhm.
But we're talking about bigger increases,
Much bigger.
on, if we did separate the, two ideas or the, two warrant articles, we're talking about bigger increases on both sides. The site work is approximately $3 million, and that would bring the cost of the school renovation to approximately 18 million. And that's not all
I think
reimbursable.
it's more than that. I think
No, you're looking at a total cost of 38 million with about 18 of it, about 20 of it not being reimbursable, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head.
Well, the problem, I think, the way I looked at it, Cliff, was that, in other words, let's take 18, project cost of 18 million is 514.80 for an average house. If you went to 20 million, it's 572. Now, is that $80 a year enough to, if someone's willing to increase their tax by, $514 a month or a year, are they then gonna say no and have no, I mean, we, as far as I'm concerned, we need the site work over there. I mean, that
It's
place
a circulation, it's a
the
safety issue
place
according to the
is,
police.
the place is a disaster now. And to not do the site work, and think that we're gonna be able to do something later on, I think for $50 a year in taxes, I just think that, you know, it's, historically what happens is, well, let's say the taxpayer goes into the booth and says, well, I don't wanna vote that much, I'll vote for the site work, but I'm not gonna vote for the building. Now what do we do? You know, when you give people choices, I used to go to court, and when someone murders somebody and the DA offers them, well, you can do first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree, or manslaughter. And the jury will come back and say, well, we'll compromise and we'll charge them, we'll convict them of manslaughter. So they'll do the lesser of the, because they feel like they're doing something, but they don't wanna go all the way. Yeah, it's something we need to discuss, obviously, but I just think that, you know, if we're gonna do this project, you know, for the difference between $60 and $80 a year in taxes is, if they're already gonna pay if they're already willing to commit the $500 and something, I think the options are, we need the site work, I just think that when you look at it, that, and I drove a school bus over there for 11 years, that site is horrendous. It's a lot like the Bradstreet property. There's a narrow opening and a lot of room in the back, and the narrow opening just makes a congested disaster over there, so. I don't know, anyway, something.
Well, I'm not advocating against the site work, in fact, I would more than likely vote for it myself, but I don't think it's a bad idea to give people choices, and you can educate them, you can explain to them that the building costs are gonna be, 48% of them are gonna be picked up by the state, and so we're pretty much, all of the site work expenses are pretty much on the town of Rowley, so I think that's something people can, you know, consider and weigh in terms of deciding whether to vote for both or just for the building. I mean, I think you can make a very persuasive case that since the state is paying for almost half of the building renovations, that would be a very sensible thing for the town to do, and very insensible to reject that at this point, because we're gonna have to be spending money on the building anyway, so we might as well get the state reimbursement.
And let them pay half. And the site work is not reimbursable.
Right, so
None of
to
them
me,
is
that's
site
another
work.
good reason for breaking them into separate articles.
You have a comment you want to make?
The site work was actually cited by both the police and fire chiefs as being basically essential to the safety of the project in the school. Because the way it is now is not untenable. There's not enough access to get a fire engine back to the gymnasium at that school. So if something happens in the back of the school, they can't get equipment back to it.
And I can testify to that if you show up at 3 o'clock at dismissal time, you're not getting in or out.
Anywhere near.
Absolutely. Yes, we invited the police chief and the fire chief back, and they made their recommendations that the site work was vital. They thought it was important for the project. Brian?
Can I just clarify, up to 8% of the site work is reimbursable?
Correct.
I don't believe that's true. I think we
No,
talked
that is
about
true.
that, and I think I remember Brad saying that the site work is, the 3.8 million, or is it 2.8 million?
2.8.
Was all on the town.
But
Well,
there's some,
If I can clarify, because I've been watching it very carefully, there is there are 8.8% of the site work that is part of the renovations, that is part of the cost that is reimbursable.
Right.
But the site work that we're talking about,
2.8
the
is
2.8
different.
is over and above that,
Right.
and is not reimbursable
Right.
at all
I
by
think
the
that's-
state.
That's the way you put it.
Karen?
I think the way it worked was the state, the MSBA will reimburse up to, is it $312 a square foot?
Yes.
total.
And of that, 8% of that can be site work.
Correct.
So if you're spending 312 on renovation, then there's no room for site work. But of that 312, up to 8% of that number can be reimbursed as site work.
Right, right.
And I believe that that site work number already, and the 312 also includes septic, which is essential as well as ADA requirements for the playground and some drainage issues around the school. So there are site work things that will be included within the scope of the original project cost. What we're talking about now is the circulation, and I guess it's mostly just circulation, if I remember correctly. There may have been some playground stuff in there too, but
I
mostly.
think we gotta get
Yeah.
that clarified for sure, this weekend.
Yeah, the site work, the septic is not reimbursable.
Correct, but if it
But
it
that's
is,
included
but
in
it's
the building
included in the
cost,
original
yeah.
part of the project, so it's kind of one of that fudgy numbers in there.
And
Right.
that's something, apparently, at least we've been told that we need that desperately, we're living on borrowed time.
Oh, yes.
So,
You do nothing.
The whole
One
place
flush
over there is
policy
on borrowed
rate.
time.
You put the fire out with the septic.
The cover.
Okay. So, thank you for your work on the, getting us those figures. We do have a lot of things to consider for the renovation committee. One, as we talked about earlier, that we did talk about the kitchen work, and I believe that was a $300,000 coverage expense, and that we did vote to, we said that we felt it was important to include that. But we're going to look to see what we can. We have some value engineering options to consider, and what we'll come out with for our final figure is going to be interesting, I think, to say the least. Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Anybody? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You don't have to stick around if you don't like it. Heads up. Okay.
You ruined your night already, you might as well stay around.
Everyone's asleep at home.
We'll
so-
talk about the fiscal year 18 budgets. And we have budgets from the assessors, the zoning board of appeals, town council, handicap commission, health department, street lights, and information services.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I prepared the informational services, so if you wouldn't mind taking a look at that one,
okay.
so I can answer any questions if you have them. So it's my bedtime. Past my bedtime.
I think we can do that. I would, as I have stated many times, that I appreciate your assistance on the team, and you've given me some valuable information that I appreciate. Information services, that's the last page. If you would take a look at that. The expenses appear to be down 2%. The coordinator stipends are level funded, and the total is down a total of 1%.
I need a motion to accept that.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the budget for the information services. All those in favor say aye.
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 Karen, just a question for you while you're here. Is there any, in the past, we've put in the capital budget money for computer replacement and stuff like that?
Yes.
Is there any of that money left?
I think we've done a pretty good job of repurposing. We are doing a major server upgrade that we had repurposed money to in the last couple of years. So I think we're pretty much done with that. We actually have more computers we need to replace in the next capital budget.
Right, no, that's my question. You don't wanna fall behind on computers because.
No, that's part of
you
the
just
capital
get killed when it's time to
appropriation.
catch up.
It's not part of the operational.
No, but I
These
mean,
are all
that's what,
capital.
no, my question just was, as long as you're here.
Right,
We'll-
right.
we'll
No,
put that.
we've been working with
Right.
PRS Group on what we need and, replacing things before they, basically are obsolete
Right,
and stop
okay.
working, so.
Nope, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Streetlights is down, Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion to accept the streetlights.
Second.
Streetlights.
The next to the last one.
Okay.
Working from the bottom back.
Working from the bottom back. So we have streetlights. It's been, motion has been made and seconded to approve the, not to approve, but to, yes,
approve.
to approve the budget for the streetlight department. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
I'll give you the health department, that's up 1.83%, but that's basically wages. All the expenses are pretty much level funded,
Second.
as we said earlier.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the health department budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Handicap's level
Handicap.
funded, I'll give you a motion for that.
Second.
Handicap has been, motion has been made and seconded to approve the budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Board of Selectmen, oh.
Town council for the Board of Selectmen, 114,600 level funded, I'll give you a motion for that.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for town council, Board of Selectmen expense. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We have zoning board of appeals.
It's down, is that right, Debbie? It's down 12, almost 13%?
We didn't use the spreadsheet.
Now,
They,
if you look at the expenses, they're level funded. They didn't have any expense, they didn't have a number in there, but it was handwritten in. So that's
you
not-
don't look at the percentage because they hand wrote it, they didn't use the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay, so
They level funded
it's
their,
level funded,
level
I'll
their
give you a motion.
expenses and,
Okay,
the, staff person is getting the, cost of
Salary,
living
okay.
increase.
yeah, I'll make a motion to accept that.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded for the zoning board of appeals budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Unanimous. And last but not least, will be the assessors. It looks like it's level funded.
Yeah, I'll give you a motion to accept the assessment.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the assessors budget for fiscal year 18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Bernie wants to-
Bernie?
Yeah, I think it's only fair, given that Brian is here and he's just heard us go through 6 or 7 budget
Gone home,
items,
Brian.
which are all level funded. And my point would be, why? So and obviously you guys know more of the details than I do, but I don't know how, and I don't know whether we're talking about material amounts of money or not material amounts of money. But we just accepted the funds in lieu of taxes from the municipal light company for $30,000. I assume that matches up with the street light budget. Is that dollar for dollar?
Right.
Why couldn't we tax them $2 for $1? In other words, why are we doing this kind of just quid pro quo? In the health department, is the health department really busy? Do we need a full-time person as opposed to a half-time person or a quarter-time person? I'm asking the basic question because Brian is here and we've been hammering away I've been hammering away at Brian to say you've got to kind of go back and look at the basics and kind of build it up as best you can in order to make the best use possible of the resources and the constrained resources we've got.
Well, most of these departments have been, even personnel-wise, have been level funded for the last number of years. In other words, we haven't increased any help in these various departments, and the workload is greater, believe me. And,
Mr. Chairman, just before you want to speak about the health department, there have been so many mandates from the State Department of Public Health that have come down on cities and towns for so many things You know, in the mosquito control, that's run by them. Their staff is an increase, and they have an expense budget for a whole year of $6,900. $6,900 is their expense budget. So I mean, if you compare that
Right.
maybe
So-
to
so
other municipalities, you'll see that they're on a shoestring, and
Right.
you know, we handle septic too, not just.
My point isn't the kind of the dollars amount per se, because I suspected that we're talking about de minimis amounts of money. My point is the process. And if the state mandates, then we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. The water department is fully aware of the, between being in a rock and a hard place, because we're there most of the time, so,
And
I just wanted to make a
Most
point
of
to
these
Brian, to Brian's benefit really, that as far as I'm concerned, we need to be looking at all of these departments exactly the same way as we'd like him to be looking at the school.
I mean, most of these, like the health department, you have the health agent, you have a secretary, and we have a septic person that has to go out and inspect the septic system. So I mean, these jobs are very, they're busy. I mean, right now, the health department there's a lot of new construction going on in town, so they're busier than ever. Do they maybe have a year when they have a little less work to do? I'm sure they do. But when the time comes that this year they have to do more, then, you know, it's, you know, even dealing with the school budget, I mean, we realize Brian has certain obligations he has to fulfill. And
No,
he has to make those decisions with the health department. If we told the health department that they gotta, say we come into a real budget shortage, and we're gonna come back and say to Frank over in health, you gotta cut 10%. You gotta figure out how you're gonna do it. We're not gonna cut the 10%, you're gonna cut it, or he's gonna cut it. Then he can come up with, well, I'll have my secretary work X amount of less hours. Right now, the budget situation is such that we're basically level funding it along with a small cost of living increase. I mean, next year, we've had years when we've had to cut back, tell everybody, you gotta cut back 5% or 10%, or there won't be any raise this year. Believe me, we've done it over the years, we've all been here and had to do that. Right now, we're level funding these. I assume we'll have money to cover the school budget. Next year, we're gonna be a whole different ballgame, but, you know, to nitpick these people, like I say, expense-wise and stuff like that, I mean, it's just.
yeah, believe me, I'm not
It's just-
raising that as a nitpicking exercise, so.
I mean, like the assessor's office, they got a principal assessor and an administrative assistant. The administrative assistant makes $25,000 a year. You know, it's just.
My experience is the town departments are pretty lean.
Pretty lean.
No, they're lean,
Pretty lean.
they're definitely lean, and I'm not saying the school budget isn't, but I mean, these departments have nowhere really to cut.
Yes.
You know, you come to the police department, you come to the fire department, maybe there's a little more room to cut here and there, but then again, you got mandated expenses like the school does. I mean, we're all in the same boat here, it's just.
I'd like to make one point, though, that 6 years ago, when I ran for my first term on this board, and I started sitting in on the selectmen's meetings, and they were talking about a budget decrease. And they voted to cut the selectmen's stipend by some percent.
10%.
10%.
10%.
And so I was sitting there, and Selectman Cummings, who was sitting up here, he said, "How do you feel, Joe, that you've taken out papers to run for selectman, and we just got your salary, and you haven't even been elected to the board yet?"
In all fairness, the finance committee looks at all of the expenses very detailed. Even for like the Council on Aging, which might have a expense line of $6,000 or $7,000, that it's all broken down and we look at it. And if there are questions, you know, we'll ask the questions and get the people in, so.
Oh,
And they do a good job with that. Yeah, I would also point out too that when Scott Levitt was the head of the highway department, and even under, I believe it was still continued under Patrick, that under that a previous budget, before I got on the board, they cut the secretary out, and they went without a secretary, for years, and they only had, the, head of the highway department and 2 workers maintaining the whole, maintenance department for, highways.
We're still not much better than that.
No, we're not,
So I mean, we're leaving mean, there's no,
we're still lean.
and my own feeling is that, you know, we put a lot of pressure on these department heads to get every nickel's worth of work out of it, and they do. I think we got some great town employees that do a lot. But if we run into a problem next year, so let's say next year, or even now, I mean, we could very well run into a problem by the end of this budget season, and say, hey, look, you gotta cut back, no more spending, no more doing this, no more doing that. There's not a lot of extra spending here. For sure.
No. Okay,
That's the end of the meeting? That's the end of the meeting?
end of what we do.
This meeting.
Yeah. No.
Not by a
Sorry.
long
Oh, I
shot.
know, wait, you to straighten this whole thing out.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody buy raffle tickets.
Buy a raffle ticket. I did this afternoon. Okay, we're off to old business. Summer concert update. Sean Godbout and his band 3 Blocks East will hold a concert on the town common on Saturday, August 5th, 2017, from 6 until 7:30 p.m. Sean would like to start doing publicity for this event. I think it's great that, something that we started when we had the 375th celebration 2 years ago. Has it been 2 or 3? I'm losing track.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
And so I think it's great that we're continuing to hold concerts on the town common. You have a motion to,
Yep, you got the motion in the second, so.
and the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think it's great that he's continuing. Okay, old business, number 2. Approve the landfill test well monitoring contract with Haley and Ward Engineers. 3 quotes were solicited for monitoring of the municipal landfill for this year. Responses were received from Haley and Ward, $12,304. DeRosa Environmental Consultant, $13,900. Tata and Howard, $15,000. Haley and Ward was the lowest qualified bidder. We're asking the Board of Selectmen to award the landfill test well monitoring contract to Haley and Ward in the amount of $12,304.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the, to award the contract to Haley and Ward for the landfill test well monitoring. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, 2 copies. And old business number 3. Discuss street light on Harrison Circle. The light on Harrison Circle was first put up after Joe Sergi of 56 Harrison Circle requested it at the end of 2014. It was later discovered that the light department had identified this area for a new light as part of its plan to improve lighting. During the January 30th, 2017 meeting, the selectmen discussed how the light had been removed by the light department after complaints that it was shining into a bedroom at 55 Harrison Circle. Since its removal, Dan Folding received a request from a resident at 56 Harrison Circle to put the light back up due to safety concerns. Does the board wish to ask the light department to reinstall this light?
Mr. Chairman, I went down last evening in the dark, and this area is extremely dark. It's pitch black, basically. The house at 55 Harrison Circle that requested the light be removed is about their house is about 80 feet in from the street, plus the pole that the light was on was another 20, at least 20 feet. That's one of the wide subdivision streets that was approved years ago. So that house at 55, that bedroom is at least 100 feet away from the street light. And, I don't know how it's shining in their bedroom. They can see it from the bedroom. I don't understand how it's shining in the bedroom, but at 100 feet away. I mean,
Probably see it.
they can see it, but I don't think it, if you go down Newbury Road, there's all kinds of people with lights in front of the houses that are 30, 40, 50 feet away, but there is another pole up there that they could easily put the light on that would not, there would be one driveway away from that house, and it's pitch black. If you go up there now, it's.
I don't know, I happened to be there after the light was turned off. And I don't know where 56 Harrison is in relation to that light, but I thought it had appropriate lighting for a neighborhood of its kind. I mean, the connection with Newbury Street is well lit, there's lights there. And I don't know, I thought it was okay, but again, I don't know where 56 Harrison is.
It's right across, they're right across the street from each other.
Are they? I mean,
And the idea when we did the street lighting, when they did the survey, the intent going way back was that there would be a street light at all the intersections. That was.
Yeah,
Well, I was just gonna say, this light came onto the list because the light department and the police department did a survey at night. And they picked out all of the dangerous intersections that were not well lit. And this was one of those.
the intersection's well lit, right? I mean,
No, Newbury, it is at Newbury Road, but down at these two, it's dark. There's one light on Newbury Road. There's one on the first pole in from Newbury Road, there's a light. This is about 6 or 8 poles down, and it's an intersection where the cul-de-sac goes around. I mean, to me, it's if you move the pole, the light, one pole probably was right in front of 55. If you move it one pole closer to Newbury Road, it's number one, it's a little bit actually closer to the intersection. The light will not shine in the bedroom because there's a bunch of trees there that'll basically block it totally in the summertime, and it's filtered light, if anything, at this time of year. So, it doesn't matter to me personally, but it's just,
yeah.
if we can keep the neighborhood happy, move it one light, and it was one of those lights that was looked at by the light department, et cetera, when it was put up, so.
Yep.
It's almost like a neighborhood dispute. Probably don't talk to each other because of one wants the light, one doesn't, so.
I have a motion to ask the light department to reinstall a light.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr. Chairman, would it be not on the pole at 55, you're talking about closer to the pole that Mr. Peterson said that's closer to Newbury Road?
Closer to the intersection, I would say that would be less needed closer to the intersection.
no,
I mean, I guess I'd have to go there again at night,
Yeah.
but, because I wasn't really thinking about this when I was there, but it seemed like it was well lit enough, and it was better lit than my street is, that's for sure.
well, I mean, it's one of those things,
And if,
Two lights
people,
down.
if people say that light shining through their window, I think you gotta take it, at their word.
yeah, but it's
for it.
100 feet. It's like from here to the cemetery away. I mean, how much light is coming? I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, those are bright lights,
It's-
they're bright lamps.
The light department gives us the light for free, so if they want a free light, give them the light.
Well, I think they already offered them a yard light.
Yeah, so I mean, it's.
A yard light, yeah.
It's a pay one.
If they move it one pole, I think that would solve all the problems. There'd be enough light there, and it wouldn't shine in anybody's bedroom, and there'd be plenty of light for because the other thing is it's a wide street, I don't know how many kids might live down there, there might be kids playing in the evening, whatever, it is dark. I specifically went down last night, around 9 o'clock, just to see, and it was dark. It was basically pitch black. You got the lights on down at Newbury Road, but up at that spot, and it is an intersection, and the policy has been that we try to light the intersections if you can.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think
it
there's
was-
an issue with that, though, I mean, I really don't, there's a light right at the intersection.
It was approved by the police department.
Yeah, I don't care. Somebody wants to make
When
a
it was
motion.
put up there, it was on that list. I mean, they went around and did a lot of those.
Yeah.
And, now you get somebody that doesn't want it there, and when it goes, somebody else wants it back.
Yeah, no, it's a no-win situation.
No, you're not gonna win this one.
No.
Bernie?
Just a matter of physics, I mean, our we have a street light that's about 100 feet from our house, and the way it shines though is away from towards the foot of the bed, not to the head of the bed. And if you're lying in bed, if we moved our bed to the other side of the room, it would be shining right in there, and my wife would want me down here every week complaining about that light.
Bernie, that's why I have a light darkening shade. Keeps all the light out, the
But
sunlight,
actually
the
they
street
make
lights, the whole thing.
Well, right, but
Our divorce.
I recommend we don't tell the people at 55 Harrison Avenue to put up shades. I mean, I don't
56.
think that's gonna help the solution.
No, it's 55, I'm sorry.
Not easy.
This is not something the committee has ever dealt with.
Are we not going to
We deal
request
with
or
the
what?
heavy stuff here.
What's the feeling of the board?
I don't care, it doesn't make, it's,
Put up a light and shoot it out.
Okay, moving on. Yes?
that's fine.
with me.
No action by the board?
Correct.
No action by the board.
Let the light department decide what they wanna do. We'll throw it back into Dan. Dan took it down to begin with, we put it back to Dan.
You're gonna
when he wants to
notify
come back again.
the light department manager, why don't, if you're gonna do that, just request of him that he have the police look at it and make a determination.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Oh, all right.
Have the light department re-examine the situation in conjunction with the police department. Make a recommendation to us, and we'll argue about this on another night.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
We could all do a site visit. and see
Is
what
that a
we can
motion?
do.
Do I have a
I
second?
didn't make the motion, yes,
Bob, you want it?
I'll
yeah.
make that motion.
All right, I'll
Hold
second
a
it.
special selectmen's meeting.
Motion has been
Bob
made
made
by
the motion. I'll
Selectman
second.
Murray and seconded by Selectman Peterson. All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Now, if we could do that with a school budget, we'd be home. In fact, maybe when we ask the light department to take a look at the school budget. Whatever they charge us, they give us a rebate on
No,
that.
they'll probably increase the budget.
We have the minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting for February 6, 2017.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman. Accept them.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes for February 6, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have the minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting for February 16, 2017.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes for February 16, 2017 Board of Selectmen meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We made it to the announcements. The Raleigh Public Library is participating in the Bruins PJ Drive, February 1st through March 15th. The library will be collecting new pairs of pajamas for babies, children, and teens. The PJ Drive benefits DCF kids and Cradles to Crayons. The PJ Drive goal is to collect 10,000 pairs of new pajamas for children and teens in need. The annual town meeting and the special town meeting are scheduled for May 1st, 2017. That's Monday night, May 1st, 2017. The town election is scheduled for Tuesday, May 9th at 2017, and that will be from noon until 8 p.m. in St. Mary's Church Hall. The Water Department and the Great American Rain Barrel Company are offering rain barrels to residents as part of a community-wide conservation and sustainability program. For more information, go to the Water Department's webpage at www.raleighwater.com. Information on the Pine Grove School Project is available on the town's website at www.townofraleigh.net. The town has the following vacancies: fence viewer, 3 positions; wood, lumber, and bark inspector; zoning board of appeals associate, 2 seats; parks and recreation committee, 1 seat; deputy shellfish constables, 2 positions. For more information on these positions, please contact the selectman's office at 948-2372. The Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. Donations can be left at the Raleigh Public Library. The food pantry is open Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.